Okay, thank you, everyone. So I call this meeting back to order, and we begin with public input. So if anybody would like to speak about something that is not on the agenda, Mr. Yule, I see you here. So would you mind giving the microphone? Just pass the microphone back.
Oh, yes.
Say your name and address, please, sir.
Good evening. Can you hear me with this? Is it on?
That's just for NORCAM, not for the.
Yo.
Oh, this is for
That's
NORCAM.
just for NORCAM.
So I want to make sure everyone can hear me as well, so I'll try to speak with a resounding voice. This is, my name is Jeff Yule, 427 Park Street here in North Reading. First of all, this is beautiful here to see these students here gathered around. You know how to draw the crowd, to pack them in. But it's it's wonderful to see this. With that in mind, I want to ask the board to have a moment of silence for the Covenant Christian School in Nashville, where 3 children, 3 adults, and 1 shooter were all now deceased. Would you please call a moment of silence?
I agree with that. Let's have a moment of silence, please, for the shooting today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm not a newsman or anything like that, but I do want to say that the incident at the school worries me because it worries me for all students in all schools, regardless of denomination, regardless of type of school, regardless of where it's located, the school. There have been enough that we have experienced, and it's sad. I think, unfortunately, in this case, the shooter was identified as a transgender woman. So when the news reports it, they report it as a woman who did this. And in reality, a transgender woman is a man, and so therefore a man committed this unfortunate atrocity. The other thing is that when I came into the school today, this evening, I can see that how vulnerable we are right now. And there is no security at this time. I was able to enter in without any watchful eye. And I think it's important that these types of incidents may not only happen during school hours, but they can happen in the evening too. I think once people, like the shooter, identify a situation or vulnerability, they will take advantage of it. And what happened at the Covenant School was that the shooter decided not to do one school because the security was too strong, and they went to this Covenant School, and they were able to gain access. So to you, I implore you to think about the security of North Reading High School, middle school, a little bit, it put some more depth into the thought process, especially in the evenings, because we are still vulnerable. On another issue, I would like to ask about the school meetings. Public school meetings are usually the 2nd and 4th of the month. It's the basic plan, correct?
Correct.
All right, and the select board is the 1st and the 3rd. All too often, as again tonight, there's a conflict. Both are meeting at the same time. I would like to be able to get the message over to the select board to please have your meetings on separate nights. Your issues in the school are way too important to decide between should I go to the select board meeting or should I go to the school committee meeting. They're both vitally important to the town. And if both committees, the board and the school committee, could get together and work this out and never have a conflict like that, except when you have a joint meeting. So I'd like you to consider that. Also, I have 2 announcements. We submitted to the school, I think it was last week, the North Reading Republican Town Committee $750 scholarship opportunity for seniors at North Reading High School or seniors throughout the town. They do not have to be attending North Reading High School. They can go to school outside town, or they can be homeschooled. So if they're getting prepared for college, we have this scholarship. Also, even if the student is in the VOC and they're going to go into a trade, a senior at the VOC is able to submit an application. And the applications are to be sent to iyull@verizon.net, and you can ask for a application via email. The purpose of the email is very simple. It's an essay. What the American flag means to me. That's all a student has to do, 500 to 700 words, and share what the American flag means to them. There's no financial restrictions or obligations, no financial records or anything like that. One letter of recommendation for a teacher, a brief statement on your life's goals, and any information unique to you that you feel is important, and that's optional. So the recipient would be announced if it is from the North Reading High School graduation, I believe it's June 9th, and the presentation by the recipient will be on Flag Day, June 14th. As I said, the $750 scholarship will be sent directly to the college of choice. So I thought I would share that with you. And one final thing is that the North Reading Republican Town Committee will once again hold its annual Candidates Night, April 25th, 2023, 7 p.m. at Kitty's Restaurant, 132 Main Street, here in North Reading. Thank you for responding to me that you will be attending. Candidates Night, this is a good opportunity for people and students to learn about the basic fundamentals of our democracy and how it really works. That people like the school board, they sacrifice their time, even their family at times, and they do what they believe is good for the community, and they have to run for elected office. And I would say that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Yule. Comments? No? Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the student report.
Thank you.
Pleased to have Maya Nickerson here, class of 2023.
Thanks. Hello.
Hi, Maya.
There's a lot going on in high school. There's a lot of Fine Arts Matters happening. The one-act play for Maskers, The Beautiful Burnout, it's moving on to the state finals, and it will be performing at the John Hancock Theater on April 31st at 1. I'm not sure if it's MICA or MICCA, but it's a band competition, and it will be on Sunday. And Notorious just returned from NACC, which was the National Acapella Convention last night, and they were in, I think, Orlando. And the District Art Show will be on exhibit from April 1st through the 26th on Main Street. And the opening reception will be on April 4th from 6 p.m. to 7:30. For academic matters, our National Honor Society is taking applications for next year's round. And I think the induction ceremony is May 11th, if I'm not mistaken. Our sophomore MCAS is starting tomorrow and Wednesday, and it's going to be the end of the third quarter soon. And we will also be hosting a NEMASC, I think it's like a workshop kind of thing, on April 11th. For athletic matters, the first week of spring sports after tryouts was this week. Boys lacrosse had a scrimmage on Saturday with Methuen and Woburn teams, and their regular season starts on April 1st at Woburn. The girls lacrosse team had their first scrimmage against North Andover yesterday, and varsity softball has a scrimmage against St. Mary's in Lynn today. And the Special Olympics Virtual Youth Summit is on April 12th, and that will be during the school day. We have a senior science fundraiser going on. So if you know a senior, you want to get them a sign. And there also will be a reality fair on Wednesday, April 12th for, I think, just anyone who wants to know what the reality is going to be like. And then I think Dr. Daly has an example of my student work that I want to show you. So I think last time I showed you my art also, but conveniently we also just finished a project. So I take art portfolio, and it's pretty much just an art class that it doesn't exactly have like a set like skill that we're trying to learn, but it's more of like an exploratory art class. So for this piece, I saw this picture of a frog wearing a tutu on Pinterest, and just in my head, this is like what I thought of just like these frogs in this little like whimsical little forest that were just dancing around and being little ballerinas. So I wanted to try to paint it. And it was cool because I've never really like made a full piece out of acrylic paint before, because I usually use like mixed media or like, I don't know, colored pencils or something that's a little easier. And it's kind of big. It's probably like this tall and this wide. So it was a good challenge to work with all that shading and trying to get the textures right and everything. But I think it turned out pretty good. Thank you.
Just brought a smile to everyone's entire room. So,
I know,
pretty
my
cool.
art class loves it. A girl told me that this is what she dreams about at night, and that was probably the best compliment I've ever gotten.
That's great.
Yeah.
Does it have a title? Have you titled the?
I haven't decided yet, but I will by the time it's for the art show.
But I'll just say congratulations to a beautiful, not beautiful, I assume it's a beautiful mind.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Congratulations
Thank you.
to maskers. It's just, it's a wonderful,
That's an amazing
wonderful thing for, we really talk a lot at this about how great we do in athletics, but also how great we do in the fine arts here in North Reading. And so it's amazing to have that. And the reality fair, I know that at least two, I don't know if Noelle said that, maybe. At least
Maybe.
two of us will be participating too, and the reality fair is a really
Are
good.
you counting me? I'm doing that.
Yes, I know, you and I are the ones I know are doing it. But
Okay.
the reality fair is great because for people that don't know, it's for the high school juniors, where kind of gives them a little financial literacy, where they have a budget, they get their job, they have to go around and all these different booths, and a lot of the community members, it's great, a lot of businesses and various committees volunteer their time, so. I volunteered, didn't realize it was a whole day, but I'm still volunteering, so it's a good thing, so. Well, thank you very much, Maya, for the
Of course.
report.
Thank you for having me.
As always, you are welcome to stay as long as you want, but
Sounds good.
you also have work if you want to sneak out as well, so.
Got it.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. I think we have some people here to present to us tonight, so I'm going to
Yeah.
turn over the presentation, I believe, to Dr. O'Connell. Welcome, Dr. O'Connell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. We've got 4 little mini presentations for you tonight. We're going to start with our very exciting a cappella group led by the amazing Miss Lister, and they're going to do a couple of songs for us, and their name is the NRHS. Is that right? NRHS. So we're super excited to have them and want to hear from them.
Come on down. Wow.
I feel so
Oh, I-
spoiled getting like this small concert.
There's a few. They can just go here and even face the crowd. We can be.
There we go. Do you want to?
Would you-
Yeah, you want to sit
Yeah,
here?
if you want. You
I
wanna
was
go
going to
back?
wonder that.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Around the back.
You come around the back. Maybe I'll go sit over here with this funny-looking group of people. I'll sit with this funny-looking group of people.
So as they get ready, I might as well start talking. They're a little shy inside today. My name is Mrs. Lister. I'm the proud director of the middle school chorus department and also the youth school after school. And then we have our incoming 6th and 7th graders who just started with us this year, who are learning what it is like to be in an a cappella group, which is completely different than being part of chorus. In chorus, you have many people that you can hide behind or with, right? And you have the piano that's accompanying you, so there's a lot more, it's more forgiving. In a cappella, you are right there for everybody to hear everything. And so we work on our blending, we work on our vowel sounds, listening to each other, and while still holding 4 or 5-part harmonies, this group does. They have come such a long way this year. They worked very hard. I'm super proud of them. The first song that the group is going to perform for you is called Busted. It's actually one of the songs we're performing at our All-Town Chorus concert, which is next Tuesday night, and then All-Town Band is the following Tuesday. So if you don't have anything to do, come see the beautiful art that will just be displayed on Main Street, and then join us for our concerts. They're a lot of fun because you get to see the 4th and 5th grade chorus all the way up to the high school chorus, and the same with band. So you get to see how they begin and then how they end, which is a wonderful journey to take with them during that day. Are we ready? So the first song's Busted, and then our second song we will perform is Sing.
Dum 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 ba-dum ba-da-ba-dum dum ba-dum ba-da-ba-dum dum ba-dum ba-da-ba-dum dum ba-dum. I can see the things you're doing, and you think that I'm naive. But when I get the goods on you, she'll finally. Okay, start over. Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Nope, wrong one. How does it start again? We're thinking of Sing. They sound similar.
That happens to me all the time. You know, during the middle of concert, I look up to you guys and say, "How does this song go again?" Right?
Wait, that was what you just did. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. Okay. Okay, sorry. One, two, 1, 2, 3. Dum dum dum, ba dum dum dum. I can see the things you're doing, and you think that I'm naive. But when I get the goods on you, she'll finally believe. She says it's all just drama, but every bubble's got to pop. She's gonna see just what you're doing, and then you're finally gonna have to stop. Don't think you're gonna win this time, 'cause you better believe I'm gonna drop the dime on you. I'll get ya, I'll get ya. And when I do, you're gonna be busted. I don't wanna put the hurt on you, but you better believe me when I tell you that I finally got the dirt on you. You're busted. Yeah, she's finally gonna see the light. This is how it's gonna be when she finds out that I was always right. You're busted. There's a new cop on the beat, and I'm bringing down the heat. My eyes are wide to all your lies, 'cause you're not that discreet. I don't care what you've heard, 'cause there's one 6-letter word. It's gonna set me free. Starts with a B. It goes B-U-S-T-E-D. You are busted. Ooh. But you better believe me when I tell you that I finally got the dirt on you. You're busted. Yeah, she's finally gonna see the light. This is how it's gonna be when she finds out that I was always right. You're busted. if your night's gone wrong. Just clap your hands and stomp your feet and sing it. Oh, 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 sing. It doesn't matter if she let you go. It doesn't matter if she hurt you so. Get up and dance. Just feel that beat and sing it. Oh, 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 sing. I don't know what you've been told, but music makes you lose control. Sing, 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 sing. Sing it out as hard as you can. Make 'em hear you from LA to Japan. Don't let 'em bring you down. This is how we're doing down. The windows down. Sing, 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 sing. Sing it with your hands in the sky. Light it up like it's the 4th of July. Don't let 'em bring you down, 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 down. It doesn't matter if you're way off track. Sing! Feel like you're headed for a hot attack. Sing! Just raise your voice and breathe your nose and sing it. Oh, 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 oh. Sing! Sing for your mama, sing for your daughter, sing for your sisters, misters, best friends, brother. 'Cause I don't know what you've been told, but music makes you lose control. Sing, 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 sing. Sing it out as hard as you can. Make 'em hear you from LA to Japan. Don't let 'em bring you down, 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 down. Sing, 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 sing. Sing it with your hands in the sky. Light it up like it's the 4th of July. Don't let 'em bring you down, 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 down. Sing for your mama, eh? Sing for your papa, eh? Sing for the whole world. Swear, Governor, one day. Hey, oh, on the beat, okay? I'm a human 808. Go ahead, go sing it till the top of the beat. So stop and away, way, way. Sing, 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 sing. Sing it out as hard as you can. Make 'em hear you from LA to Japan. Don't let 'em bring you down, 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 down. Sing, 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 sing. Sing it with your hands in the sky. Light it up like it's the 4th of July. Don't let 'em bring you down, 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 down. You know what I'm talking about. Sing it a little bit louder now. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to try out our songs in front of a live audience. It's always helps to have someone in front of us. And again, thank you. We appreciate you letting us have this experience.
This is the really first full year of having the enharmonics, correct? So last year was just the very beginning. So in just 1 year, I've seen a lot of growth. And I know some of you, only a few were here last year, but it sounded amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I'll just say, awesome job, guys, all of you. And I see a lot of faces into the woods as well. That was amazing also. Let's do a great job on the performance as well. So, really talented group, so.
Great job, guys. It's nice to see with normal clothes, not like wolf clothing.
They're coming back, yeah.
That was incredible.
That was amazing. So many of them had like the feeling too. Oh my God, feeling so cute. So great. Great. I love it.
The second part of our presentation tonight is from our computer science club. So we've had a computer science club in the past. It's been dormant for the last few years, and I received an email, I think in September, Baggy, maybe September, from a junior or senior? Junior at North Reading High School, asking me about a computer science club and was there any interest in would kids be interested in the club again? So we talked to Mr. Burke and actually Ms. Kerwin, but they're both robotics teacher and computer science teacher. Mr. Burke said that he would be happy to advise the computer science club again this year, and Boggy's been helping, running with Mr. Burke every meeting, and we have 2 students here as well. So come on down, guys, introduce yourselves and talk about what you've been doing in computer science club.
All right, so I'll start. I am Mr. Burke. I teach 7th grade computer science here, and I also run the computer science club. But truthfully, I don't really do too much in computer science club. Boggy had the idea to start the club. She helps every single time that we meet. She figures out what we're gonna do, and I just sort of give my input and sort of help to run whatever we're doing. So it's really, the show is hers. We do a lot of really cool stuff. We have a lot of really cool kids who swing by and participate each week. But really the show is hers, so I'll just kick it over to her.
Hello everyone, my name is Boggy Bandera, and I founded and helped run the computer science club at the middle school. Mr. Burke gave an overview, but I'd like to talk a little bit about why I started the club. So when I was in middle school, there actually was a computer science club, and I went to the first meeting, but I didn't have a lot of coding experience, so I did feel a little lost, and everyone else seemed to know what they were doing. So I didn't think I'd benefit much from the club. I was still interested in computer science, so I decided to learn to code, and then in high school I took a bunch of classes, and in junior year I learned that the old computer science club in the middle school had been disbanded, and I wanted to make sure that nobody would quit exploring computer science just because they couldn't find help or resources. So I decided, why not start a computer science club to create a fun learning environment for students who are just starting to code, and for students who may have some more experience and want to explore computer science outside of what is taught in the curriculum. So now we have the Computer Science Club, and it's going really well. I'm really enjoying working with such a talented and curious group of students, and I really hope that some of them continue exploring computer science into high school and in the future. And I'd like to thank Dr. O'Connell for trusting me to do all of this, and Mr. Burke for his support and guidance.
Great, so now we'll hear from 2 of our brightest stars in all of North Reading. We have Brendan Dandino and Stephen Nikos.
Over here, so
Yeah,
they
if
can
you
see.
want to scoot over, guys.
Guys can come right up here.
Right up behind the podium, I guess.
Yeah.
So we have Brendan Dandino and Stephen Nikos. They're going to describe a little bit more in detail some of the things that we have done in Computer Science Club. Like I said, we do a lot of really awesome things, ranging from coding to dealing with physical computing to playing fun games and all those other things. So they're going to give us a little bit more detail about that. So go ahead, guys.
All right, I'll go first. So a lot of what we do in Computer Science Club is learning how to code in Python, and that includes guided coding sessions where Mr. Burke will tell us what each line does and how it's important to the program. Like we did a hangman game earlier in the year, and it came out pretty good. And then we can also code individual projects that we have ideas for and we just want to put into code.
Hi, I'm Brendan, and we don't just do programming on a computer. We sometimes do physical computing, which we actually took apart old computers. Now these computers were broken, so we opened them up, opened the keyboard, flipped it up, and we had to take out the motherboard, the daughter board, and the battery. And we did one more thing, and it was the Raspberry Pi. Well, actually, no, we're going to do that. And it's the green thing on the board up there. It's it's like its own computer, but it fits into the size of your hand, so it's very portable.
Yes, and just to give a little bit more background on those, it's basically a small computer. You can do a whole bunch of different stuff with it. For example, at my old place, I used to have a Raspberry Pi that I actually turned into a security system. So you can basically set it up with a little camera and have it trip if anything breaks the field of view or anything like that. So there's a lot of really cool little mini projects that you can do, either working with simple circuits, so trying to learn the basics of that and sort of how all of that operates, or trying to build up to those larger projects like I mentioned. So like I said, all sorts of really cool stuff. It's very exploratory in nature. Some days we do more guided activities, but largely we want to foster the the sort of sense of exploration, the curiosity of all these kids, like Bobby mentioned earlier. It's just a great time, and I'm happy to do it. And thank you all for participating. Anybody else have anything to add?
You're both seventh graders, so you had sixth grade computer science, and are you currently in computer science, or did you have it first semester?
I had it first semester.
What
I'm
are you-
currently in
You're currently in
computer
computer science. So at the middle school, students in sixth and seventh grade get one semester of computer science. So has that been complementary to what you're doing in the club? Is it something that kind of excited you about learning more about computer science?
Yeah, really, for me, computer science class really started it, and I really like computer science, so I joined the club.
Great. Same for you, Brandon?
Well, it kind of started back in like maybe elementary school when we were like doing code.org basically. It's like make code, which is like blocks. But over time, I gradually got into more complicated things, and now I'm trying to work with C++ at the moment.
Nice.
That's great. That's great to hear, guys. I mean, we've on the school committee the last few years, we've seen a lot of this, like trying to get computer science, you know, at sixth grade and even in the elementary and the one-to-ones. And so, you know, it's great to see people that are interested in it and, you know, having fun with it too. So,
Yeah.
Love it.
I have 2 questions. One, and I just, do you do one semester in 6th grade and in 7th grade, or is it just one over those 2 years? Like, do you get it, do you guys,
Yeah, so it's one semester of computer science in each year.
in each year? Okay.
Yeah, so in sixth grade, it's with Mrs. Byrne, and then in seventh grade, it's with me.
Okay.
So it'll switch off between either computer science or world language, and that'll be the alternate semester.
Okay. And my other question is, I feel like, you know, we just had the a cappella group in here, and they are doing some demonstrations and maybe competitions. Is there any opportunity for you guys to do things like that? Like, who can take apart or put together something fast, or, you know, something like that? Like, do you see any future for that? Like some neat
Yeah,
ways
we
for
can-
these guys to have achievements that way?
Absolutely. So in the future, we can definitely show off some of the projects that they make. Like I said, very exploratory, so they come up with some awesome ideas. And so we can definitely work on that, and some of the Raspberry Pi or the physical computing, things like that, we can definitely show off in the future if that would be something that you all are interested in.
I think it's just interesting.
That's
And I
good.
thought Raspberry Pi was something you put ice cream on, so.
Just to say, we've had robotics teams in the past.
I knew
and they
we've
come-
had robotics, so I wasn't
There is
sure.
one based in the town right now, and if
Okay.
anyone's interested in that, they can
Okay.
reach out to, I can help provide them with the contact info. We just had an event at the library for that group, and but
Yeah.
they're always looking for coaches and participants in that as well. So.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you have any shortage of old equipment to take apart?
Yeah, do you want our old computers?
Yeah, if you have any old PCs or anything, you don't want to wait for the day that you're supposed to get rid of it.
Recycling day,
Drop it off in my room if it's if I can use it, I'll use it. If not, I'll figure out a way to get rid of it. So.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
guys.
thanks for getting it started, yeah.
Thank you.
I think with that,
Awesome.
that club in particular, I think it's great to foster the high school mentorship. And we don't do enough of that, and we need to do more. So again, I think it's wonderful that our students are able to learn from the experiences of our high school siblings. So our next presentation is from Maddie D'Angelo. Each year, we typically share with you our Project 351 ambassador, and we will continue with that tradition. I'm proud to introduce Maddie D'Angelo as this year's Project 351 ambassador. She's going to tell you about her experience and about a current clothing drive that is wildly successful that she's running all by herself. Sure.
Yep. Good evening. My name is Madeline D'Angelo. I'm in 8th grade, and I am honored to be this year's North Reading Middle School representative for Project 351. Project 351 is a nonprofit organization that stands for kindness, compassion, humility, and gratitude. Each year, they invite one 8th grader from each middle school in Massachusetts to unite and be part of a team, growing and learning together in service of the Commonwealth. On January 14th, I attended the Project 351 launch day in Boston at Faneuil Hall, and it was truly an experience I will never forget. Oh, thank you. There was a mix of nerves and anticipation, though as the day went on, it shifted to pride and excitement. The day started with all of the students getting on buses from around the state and driving into Boston, where we met our group leaders.
Welcome.
Thank you. We listened to speeches from previous ambassadors and some amazing guest speakers such as Lauren Baker and Maura Healey, the current governor of Massachusetts. They spoke of what it means to make change and how each and every one of us have the power to do it. And for the first time, all together, we got to put on our Project 351 shirts. The energy in the room was so inspiring. As an ambassador, my job is to learn the fundamentals of leadership and service and implement them in our community. I was able to have a hands-on experience at my first service project with my group at Suffolk Downs. We got to make Valentines for veterans that included cards, scarves, flowers, and candy. We were also able to partner with Annie's Kindness Blankets and hand-make blankets and care packages for patients in need of comfort during their treatment at mental health institutions. I am so proud of the good work we did that day, and I cannot wait for more experiences like it. As a group of more than 300 eighth graders, by the end of the day, we were able to positively impact the lives of 6,152 people in the Boston area. If in 10 hours we were able to make that much change, imagine how much more we can do simply by working together and always remembering our why, our inspiration and motivation for doing everything. This year, I will strive to carry and spread this message in whatever I do as I do my part to make our community a better place. I am so lucky to have been able to make new friends and connect with so many amazing role models along the way that I still keep in touch with. Having these people to reach out to is such a great source of support, advice, and motivation during my training this year. And it is a constant reminder that we are all on one team, working towards the same goal, a better and brighter future. Thank you. Yes, so right now I'm working with Cradles to Crayons along with every ambassador in the state to collect clothing and donate them to all of the children in need in Massachusetts. So as of right now, I am putting together this clothing drive with peer leaders and student council when I can, and for a little extra motivation, the grade that brings in the most clothing will earn a homework-free weekend, so in case they need it. And I'm super happy with the turnout I've had so far. I've had it going for about a week, and at the end of next week, Friday, we will finish out the clothing drive, announce the winners, and see how much we collected. And I'm really proud of it so far, and I hope we can do our part, make a difference, and make it a better place. So.
That's awesome.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Is it new or used clothing?
New and gently used.
New and gently used, okay.
All ages are great, and anything
All right.
we can do to help would be awesome.
I'm gonna send some bags in. I'd love a homework-free
you.
weekend for my sixth graders.
I just have to say you're a remarkable public speaker, and you should be
Yep,
very
absolutely.
proud of yourself.
Thank
Like,
you so much.
it's amazing to see that leadership trait in someone your age.
Thank you.
Mr. Yu, you had a question?
I was gonna ask about the clothing.
Yeah.
How do we get, we happen to be cleaning out our house, so. We got a bunch of clothes, 18 years worth of clothing, that hasn't been worn for a long time, it's in good shape.
Yeah,
How do
definitely.
we reach out to you?
So yeah, you can email me at mdangelo@st.nrpsk12.
D'Angelo?
mdangelo, MDANGELO, or you can email Miss O'Connell, peer leader.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think.
Oh, if they're
Not able to receive it.
Yes, but yes, definitely. Anyway, you can contact the school, Miss O'Connell,
That's
peer
great.
leaders, student council, anything like that. So, that'd be good. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I was just gonna say the same thing. You're an excellent speaker, and just the passion that comes through with it too. And so I hope, I wish more people had that, I don't know, that the good outlook at life right now. And so it's just, I don't know, it's inspiring. So keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
So you might remember our Project 351 ambassadors coming each March to this presentation, and for the last 3 years, their experience has been virtual. So this was the first year in many years that they actually got to go into Boston, and I was really happy for Maddie. And one little side note that Maddie told me, a friend from preschool or elementary preschool in the town next door in Reading, they were friends, and wouldn't you know, they were both chosen as Project
Wow.
Oh, that's
351
awesome.
ambassadors, which is pretty neat. So, right from the beginning,
awesome.
you knew you were gonna be good friends. Okay, our last presentation tonight is, all of them have been important to me and wonderful and special. This one is particularly very exciting to me and really resonates with my passion and my soul, and it's something that the middle school is beginning to explore, and we're really excited to share with you just our baby steps into learning about restorative practices in community circles. We have two teachers here. One is our adjustment counselor, Mike Hirsch, and one is our robotics teacher, Kathleen Kerwin, who in a previous district had a lot, or previous, not a district, in a previous work setting, had lots of experience with restorative practices. And then we have a student with us as well, Nora Denninger, who's going to speak about her experience with community circles that we've been doing this year. So I'll let you guys take over.
For having us, guys. So as Dr. O'Connell said, Ms. Carwin and I both had previous experience doing restorative practices in our previous schools or placements. So restorative practices has a school-wide approach. At every tier, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right now the community circles really serves as our tier 1, tier 2 approach, where it could be incorporated into classrooms depending on how the time allows. Our practice really is focused on building community, building relationships, building empathy, learning how to connect with other people, listen to other people's perspectives, share yours. The power of doing this in a circle format is that everybody has a voice, everybody respects each other's perspectives. Everybody really is treated as and feels equal as part of this one community. The circle within that structure is intentional to be able to provide that feeling. So we've been really doing a lot of activities, holding conversations. We've been exploring questions to get the students to think together, share different perspectives. And we're going to have Nora talk a little bit about what her experience has been like, both good and bad and just everything, right?
Yeah. Okay. Hi, my name is Nora Denninger. I am in the 8th grade, and I was one of the first, I was in the first circle group for North Reading Middle School, and it's still going on. We've got 2 more weeks. Yeah, so the format of the circle is, of course, sitting in a circle, and we talk. We set guidelines before our talks, and we use a talking piece, which is supposed to allow only the person who is talking, holding it to talk. That sometimes works. It doesn't a lot of the time. We are a mixed group of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, which gives us a chance to hear about the experiences of students in different grades. We started out the group by playing little games like Never Have I Ever and 3 Truths and a Lie, so that we could get to know each other better. The structure of the circle, trying to use the talking piece, it makes it work. One of my favorite circle activities is called blind drawing. It was a very fun activity. Partners sit back to back while one of them draws, and the other person describes the picture that they're looking at on the piece of paper. And so you come out with a picture, and then you come out with something that looks like a hairy pineapple, which is what I do. I also enjoy when one of the teachers asks a question for the group to consider, which happens at the beginning and end of every circle. We go around in a circle, allowing everyone to answer. An example of one of these questions is, this was a heavier one. We had to give advice to Mr. Hirsch on how he can tell his young children about having to put their family pet down. But there are also lighter ones, like what are 3 things that you can live with that are not like food, water, and air? Or what's your favorite breakfast? Circles do not work for everyone, but for people that it works for, it is very helpful to have a safe space to talk. Everything that we say in the circle is confidential, so people who would if people told other people, they would get in a lot of trouble. Students are allowed to pass if they don't want to talk, but they are definitely encouraged to, as it can relieve stress. It helps us connect around common experiences, and I would like to see it possibly continue at the high school. Thank you.
Just so no one thinks it's very mysterious, I actually spent a few years working in the Juvenile Detention Center. It's where I first got exposed to the concept of restorative justice and restorative practices. I have incorporated these kind of ideas into my teaching practice since then, and it's been 15 or so years since I've done it. To me, it's based on the philosophy that the best education happens with children when they feel like they're in a place where they belong, and they feel like that they have ownership of where they are and who they are, and that they have a place there. That has to happen first. And then when they're comfortable in the situation, they can hear you. They can take in the education part of it. But I think we're all aware that, especially with middle school and high school, there's a huge social aspect to it. And these circles help everybody kind of find a place in the school, and they find people that they can talk to, and maybe people that they wouldn't have known that they had things in common with. So it's a great way to build friendships. It's a great way for people to feel comfortable in their own skin, in their own place, and really take ownership of their own school. I really like the concepts and practices of this. So when Dr. O'Connell brought up doing this, I went, I actually was trained. So I'm very excited to help participate in this, and I really do hope that we can expand it and let people see that it's really just about letting people belong and letting everybody belong and finding a place in the school.
Do you want to share just your, Ms. Kerwin has a student, a fairly quiet student who really hadn't had a lot of engagement, would come in and do what needed to be done, but once the circles started, this particular student, do you want to share just?
There was one student who initially they were not enthusiastic about attending and agreed to try it out. Slowly began to sort of participate, would pass a lot, but the first time we got them to answer, it was a victory. And I also have, I'm the robotics teacher, so I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The student happens to be in one of my classes, and before, I would often see them in the hallway kind of just looking down and not reaching out or speaking. And now in the morning, they make sure to seek me out and to say hello and make sure I know they're there. So there's a lot of, I think, a feeling of safety that builds for some kids who don't naturally feel inclined to belong in a particular place, and it helps them find a place to be. So this particular student has gotten me very excited because they have come a long way, and their parent has acknowledged that too.
Which brings me to a good point. So this spring, while we piloted this, it was on a volunteer basis. So it was during our MTSS time, which is when the whole school stops for either interventions or enrichments. So for students whose parents, we explained the whole concept and parents opted in. And so there we had 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I don't know, 20 or so students who have participated in this community circle since February. And we've had 10 teachers, roughly, myself and Ms. Oliveto included, recently trained in the restorative practices approach. So it's really exciting. It's something that we would like to continue to learn about and possibly implement more at the school.
And just as an addendum too, we meet MTSS twice a week. Very rarely are any of these kids absent on those days. Once in a while, but very rarely is somebody out. And it's usually because they had a doctor's appointment or something they couldn't avoid. So it's been good that way too.
Great.
That's awesome.
And so one quick comment, Nora, you are also an excellent speaker. I mean, very powerful and really like hearing you speak as well. And then for the first pilot, were there certain students that were invited that you sent it to, or
I
everybody?
put it out to all parents.
Okay.
Would you like your child to participate in this? And everyone that said, well, that sounds interesting, we entered into the pilot. So about 20. It's not a huge number, but it was a nice size to start.
And having the 6 through 8 is really nice. That, you want to say?
One more thing, I was not super enthusiastic about the group at first, but now I am one of the people who talks the most. I have seen also a lot of growth in the other students in the group. Some of them are openly not into it, but the people who are really now engaged, and it's a really nice environment.
It's a little community that you've built.
Yeah.
That's great. I have so many questions. I love this. I actually like, this is, to me, this is like life-saving level stuff. Oh, I'm the crier, as everyone knows. One question, there's tiers mentioned. So what are the tiers and what does that mean?
Sure. So at the whole school level, at tier 1, that's when we would be doing these types of community-based circles. You're doing just whole school. Everybody gets access to SEL lessons potentially. As teachers and staff are trained in the approach, they would be having conversations around affective statements, different ways of having conversations with your class around even potentially problematic behavior in the classroom. As you move up the tiers, you're addressing a smaller group of students. So at the tier 2 level, one aspect of restorative practices that's really important is it looks at discipline in a different way than a traditional school model. We look at repairing harm rather than a punitive approach to dealing with challenging behaviors in school. So at the tier 2 level of this approach, we would be bringing students together where there might have been a conflict between them and really working it out sort of like in a smaller circle. It's called restorative chat. We would be having classroom-wide conversations around, hey, what's going on in the classroom today? I noticed students are talking out when they shouldn't be. It's just a very different approach. At the tier 3 level, it's really when you're dealing with students who are having a really, really hard time, whereas as an alternative or potentially depending on policies in addition to something like suspension, you'd be having a restorative conference where the child, the parents, the families are invited in, and you're basically doing a circle about the behavior that happened or the violation, if that's what you would call it. So at each level of going from whole school to just a few students, we're addressing this in a very different way than a traditional school model.
In my mind, I think tier 1 is proactive. We're trying to
Right.
teach.
So your pilot program is a small sample of what tier 1 would be,
Yes,
essentially.
but we have also done, because we've been trained, some smaller restorative chats. Mr. Hirsch has facilitated those, Ms. Oliveto has.
And Nora participated
Yeah, I
in one.
participated in one, not at the receiving end, but at the helping, like, counsel end.
To talk through peer conflict.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said these take place during MTSS. Now, obviously, there are some kids, a lot of kids who are in MTSS for academic needs.
Correct.
So because obviously I think every kid deserves access to this. So what's your thoughts on the next step for that?
We're already thinking about next year's schedule, and we would continue with the MTSS interventions at least 2 days a week, and possibly be adding a 3rd day for this type of work, not every week, but a 3rd day that wouldn't be an academic intervention. It would be more of an SEL or what I need block that I've spoken to Dr. Daly about. So it would be outside of the MTSS intervention time so that more students could participate.
And do you ever envision a time where this is not like an opt-in, opt-out, but it's something that, like, kids can't opt out of math, obviously, or they can't opt out of gym class, for example. Do you envision this being something that almost becomes part of the fabric of a health or a SEL curriculum?
The guidance that we've been given is, and we're working with a consultant, is that the implementation can take multiple years. So down the road, would I like to see all students benefit? Absolutely. I don't think that will be next year, but I do think that it's something that with our SEL work, we'd like to focus on the tier 1 proactive community building circles, because I do think, especially since COVID, that is a place where the relationship skills, the perspective taking, the social awareness and skills are lagging, and we need to build those up, particularly at this age level.
When it's done well, I previously worked in Malden. Teachers across the school would be doing homeroom circles, just a quick 5-10 minute check-in. You know, how you doing? What's your temperature today? Students are coming in having really rough nights the night before, rough mornings. The teacher may not know that, and then they have a circle to check in, and that really helps, bridge that gap and really help communicate to find out what the students need. Academic lessons can be run through the circle model rather than having students at their desks as they typically might, whereas each student now gets to reflect on whatever the academic content might be. There's so many ways this can be incorporated into a school.
That's great. I mean, I see the SEL lessons that are taught, and sometimes I think kids, you know, they pay lip service to it, but like this seems like taking theory and putting it into practice, which I think for kids you have to do to learn. So it's, I think it's.
Let me just interjecting a quick comment.
Sure, yes, please.
Okay. One of the things about doing the circles, and obviously where I started implementing it was a much tougher kind of crowd, it creates a language that if everybody's using it, someone can just come in, and if you use a certain, okay, how's your weather today? Someone can just come in your classroom and go, it's a thunderstorm, and you know what they mean. And it helps them feeling belonging because they feel like people know what they're talking about. So just creating that common language is really helpful. I think if we have an opportunity to have kids that start out in 6th grade thinking this is what we do, and kind of progressing through 7th and 8th grade, it'll just be a more normal practice. But which, you know, now we can introduce it to you, but I think it is more effective if they come through the system 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And it'll become more of like just part of what we do and who we are. And the other thing about it that I find is one of the reasons I really like it is I don't want to overstep the pushback already, but sometimes people's thing is that, oh, well, kids need to take responsibility for what they do. I can tell you from personal experience, there is nothing more powerful than watching somebody sit across from somebody that they have done real harm to and have to apologize to them. And to have to accept responsibility for what they did, to me, is going to be much more effective in having somebody understand their behavior has consequences than just saying you broke this rule, now you have to write 100 lines or you're suspended for 2 days, and they come back and they've been punished for it, but it hasn't done anything about the behavior. The problem is still there. And this kind of addresses the whole person and sees them in context to the world that they're part of.
I know that you just getting started, tier 1, small cohort, but the reactive stuff that you sort of spoke to seems more tier 2. Is that something that the school is equipped to do and is starting to do now? Or is it, you know, is that going to take quite a bit of time to become the standard? So if there's something going on in the school, if there's a bullying situation, like maybe this is a tactic that could address that?
We're using it now for the folks that are trained. So
Okay.
as I mentioned, Mr. Hirsch is trained, I'm trained, Ms. Kerwin's trained, Ms. Olivetto's trained, Mr. Madison is trained, and there's about 6 or 7 other teachers that went through a training. So those folks, less so the teachers right now, the guidance kind of an admin are having those tier 2 conversations, and really Mike is helping kind of lead us through that process.
Because like you said, that is powerful, right? When you can
I've always
take accountability.
I've seen some really
that's real transformative work that can be done. Yeah.
And the staff that have been trained, so Mr. Madison, one of our guidance counselors, they get really excited about it. You can see that this really just feels like it fits. And so he in particular, I've seen, has gone out to work with a teacher and a student to resolve a conflict. Maybe the student's not getting their work done and we can't quite figure out why. And so they'll sit together, and the transformation even that he described in that one situation that I'm thinking of, the student went from being very nervous and defensive and feeling like, oh, I'm in trouble again, to really opening up and explaining what was hard for them and really connecting with their teacher to have a plan that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to come to.
It would be good for parents to know that that's an option. Like if they have a child at home struggling with something going on at school, knowing that they could, you know, set something like that up and resolve some issues with the school. Because I know in our community those things come up, and you know, we hear about it in the middle school, and I just think it's a great opportunity for parents to know, and it might even, you know, bring more people into wanting to participate.
Use the same language. We've talked about some parent nights possibly in the fall.
And I would like to say too that we do have several students across the spectrum of different learning challenges and things who participate in the group, and it is helpful for those students to know what you mean. Like when I say this is everybody understands that that's what it means, and it helps them express to you what it is that they're thinking and feeling, and helps them recognize it themselves. So it's not something that you can only apply to a certain group of students. In its own way, it can be applied universally to people of all different ability levels or challenges.
Mr. McGowan, you can?
Yeah, I just think that I see a theme here, Dr. O'Connell, of belonging and having a place to belong of all the presentations, especially this one and the story of the robotics club, of the computer science club is really amazing. Just having creating of a junior coming in, high school junior coming in and creating a space for some kids to actually feel a sense of belonging and something that they love. I just think this is great. I'm so glad you guys came and shared all this. I really, really appreciate it. And if I was working in education, and especially in the middle school, I think the thing that would keep me up at night the most is who doesn't feel like they belong here? Who am I missing? What am I missing? And this is great that you guys are working on it from this direction. So thanks.
That's great.
Mr. Yule, thoughts?
Thank you. This is a great program. I mean, we can see it just by the way you describe it and the interaction that you have. The name is interesting. You said you learned about this in prison?
Well, I worked I actually live in New Hampshire, and there's only one juvenile detention center in New Hampshire. And while I was working there, this whole concept of restorative practices was kind of came into being in those settings. And when people in the broader sphere realized that this was so effective with kids who had such real issues and problems and difficulties, and well, you know, how would that look like if we took kids and let them learn how to recognize their emotions, let them learn how to express it to you, let them learn that they live in a greater community and that their behavior affects one another, then maybe some of those kids wouldn't have ended up there. So it's a modified program when you're doing it obviously in a more general population than it is when you're with kids who commit felonies, but it works really well in my experience, and it just feels right.
You can see that in its design. I had a problem with the name, though, restorative practices, because it means that you're going to restore something, right? So it's restore something that was lost in the prison environment. Yes, I mean, these kids are lost, and they need to be found, and this was a way to do it. When you apply it to a school environment, it must be a little bit softer environment.
Do you mind if I just,
Go ahead.
the restorative part of it, it's just there's so many layers to this that we're trying to give you kind of the highlights. The restorative part of it is recognizing that you have done harm to your community. You have done harm to another person. The restorative part of it is restoring that relationship, restoring your place there so that you can be welcomed back into the community as a member. It's restoring the trust between someone that you have violated or harmed, and making them feel like that you really are sorry. It's not just lip service to that. And you're willing, and it's not just, oh, I'm sorry, and you walk away. There's a plan. Like, what are you gonna do to make up for what you have done? So you're restoring their trust in you. You're restoring your right to be in that community as a fully functioning member. So that's where the background of that is. And initially, all of this is based on a Native American practice of how to live in community, and that's the traditional name. So people, to honor that, keep that restorative part of the title.
Mr. Chair, for you, I can see, you know, we all know about the horrors between middle school kids going into high school. You know, there's a horror, there's a scary transition for students. I can see where this would really help with that, and especially if this program is continued in the high school, so that when students make a leap, they, you know, it's there, that blanket of support is there. One concern that I have.
Mr. Yule, I'm sorry, I'm gonna, no, we're this isn't an open comment back and forth. We're hearing a presentation of what's happening. This is not a public forum on whether we should do this or not. We're gonna move on and continue the comments, so. That's okay, but we let you ask a couple questions. We really appreciate everybody coming tonight. Just a couple of general comments I would have overarching. Number one, I want to thank all the adults. I mean, I know a lot of the teachers come and they give up their time at night, you know, and for all the different clubs, every club is required to have somebody, you know, to be a sponsor and to stay after school. And, you know, it's such an impactful thing on the students, you know, even if there's, you know, 4 or 5 kids that have an interest in computer science and if the teacher stays with them to foster that interest, I think it's great. And so I just, you know, appreciate, I know only a couple of people are invited to come each time, but I see the work of so many different teachers that are staying extra hours to do that. I appreciate that. And for something like this, just talking about, you know, when we're gonna be talking about the budget, one of the things that we're very nervous about is like, how do we keep adjustment counselors, you know? And those are the things where, you know, we're gonna talk about it in budget discussions, that it's nice to see how it works in practice as well. You know, it helps us, I think, when we're trying to make funding decisions and things like that. So, you know, I appreciate that part as well. So, but we really appreciate the
It's a
presentation.
very general
Will you
comment.
please
Yes.
keep us posted on progress? I'd love to hear an update next year.
You'll see it in the school improvement plan for next year with your approval to continue this work.
Yeah.
We did have one more quick thing,
Oh, yeah.
speaking of clubs, Mr. Hirsch has, with a student's sponsorship.
Yep.
I didn't include
Okay,
it.
I got it.
Sorry.
Yeah, we had that as the next one.
Has asked to start a chess club next year. I do not have a chess club. So for your consideration, committee members, there it is. We would like to start a chess club that Mr. Hirsch would facilitate or advise for next year.
I assume Mr. Hirsch knows how to play chess?
Not an expert, but.
And we have,
An enthusiast, for sure, I imagine.
and you,
There has
and-
been a
yeah.
real uptick of students who like to do the chess online, and so they're looking for places to actually play each other.
I have a student who comes and sees me all the time, and he just wants to keep playing chess.
That's amazing.
He 3D printed chess pieces, so, you know.
Oh.
Wow. The students are excited about it.
Carries them with them
He
to
does.
lunch.
Yeah. And you already have 6 people signed up, which is great, I see. And then my only question was gonna be on, is it primarily online? Is it
It would be in person.
is it also like a physical board as opposed?
Yeah,
okay,
that's great.
good. Yeah.
That would be the focus.
Yeah. And I think that's nice also, because if students don't know anybody else who wants to play and they go online, then there's other concerns about that piece of it. So having, I think, the social interaction, but also the safety of, you know who it is you're playing against next to you, so. Excellent. Any questions on the chess club?
Oh, it's great. I think it's, can I come? I actually have no idea how to play chess, but it seems
There you go.
something to do. My daughter now knits, thanks to Knitting Club.
There you go.
The clubs have been a great success, and the late bus that we've been able to provide since last year is a really like game changer for allowing students to participate who normally wouldn't have a ride home. That's fantastic.
No. Can I have a motion to accept the chess club?
Motion to accept the chess club.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Surprisingly unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanhank you, guys.
Thank you,
If I could
everybody.
just, Mr. Buckley.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Dr. Daly.
Thank Ms. Dr. O'Connell and to all of the teachers and staff in North. Wonderful presentation as
Outstanding.
always. I think, you know, she always does a good job, as all our administrators do, to tie this into their school improvement plans, as she mentioned. And it's through some thought there to be emphasizing these very important pieces of our school. Everything from our extracurriculars and our performing arts to our computer science and that work that's been done. And I love how she brought back, you know, things that we've built for several years now to see how that's played out. And then this work, which is so important. And just to echo that, you know, the law does call for the restorative practices to be now a part of the discipline piece. But we are really taking some lead on that at the middle school, and we're gonna hopefully do some more trainings district-wide. And Mr. Hirsch has been really instrumental in being that trainer coming to us, so he's been quite a great asset in his first year here, so, and welcome. And I was able to get to Ms. Kerwin's room the other day as well for quite some time and enjoyed just seeing the robotics program and just all the amazing things kids are doing. So thank you so much for a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, moving on, we have other guests here tonight. We've got lots of guests tonight. The Northeast Vocational School Representative, so Judy Diamond and Superintendent DeBerry. We welcome you for your presentation to us as well.
You have lots of questions for us, and we're here hopefully especially with my fiery Irish temper sometimes, but we're getting there. Right, Mr. DeBerry?
Yeah.
We're very lucky to have the administrative team that we have. Mr. DeBerry is out constantly. He has 12 school committee members demanding his attention and time, and he always makes himself available. So we're very, very lucky to have the caliber of superintendent that he is, as well as the rest of our administration. We're very happy. So, I don't know where you'd like us to begin, or?
I can give my little spiel,
here he
if that's
goes.
okay.
Get ready, buckle
Yeah.
up.
Sorry. So first of all, I'd like the name of your middle school public speaking teacher. I'm going to do some recruiting. I can't tell you how impressed I was and how fortunate we were to come to this particular meeting where we got to see these particular students.
Very good.
Yeah, keep an eye out for me next year. I might have applications that I'm slipping to some of the students. But I think I also, as the presentations were going on, I was thinking on how many ways we'd love to collaborate, you know, just with a clothing drive. Your computer students, I think, would love to visit our robotics program. And again, it would be a situation where I'm not trying to recruit or steal them from you. You folks have a great school system, and I'm sure they look forward to continuing at North Reading High. But it was very impressive to hear them. Not a day goes by at Northeast that I don't say this generation gets a bad rap. So I think when you turn on the news, all we see are little TikTok trends and any little negative thing you see on a sports field and in a gym. I think being able to see the caliber of this generation really needs to happen more. We made an effort 2 years ago to bring in a PR company to help us spread the word on some of the things our students do, and it's a big part of what we do in teaching, I think, the public that, you know, there is hope and that this next generation may be the greatest generation. And I think we need to continue to do these things. So one of the things I'll probably discuss in our next school committee meeting is having more public student presentations. We do them from time to time. But this really was a very enjoyable moment being here tonight. So I'm not using ChatGPT. I did write some notes. I didn't have it write my speech, although that would have been funny. But just to update you a little bit on our progress, we have already received over 1,000 applications for the incoming freshman class for next year. And I've discussed before that that's a bittersweet number, as we can only accept 330. I think it validates what we do every day, but we still have to look at the students not getting accepted. And that's a challenge. So as you know, we're trying to build a bigger Northeast. And last year we talked about our Saturday program where we allow high school students from all 12 of our cities and towns to come up on Saturday, and that has grown dramatically. I think the first year, 3 years ago I came here, we had about 25 students, and then last year we had about 75, and this year we have well over 100 students. But it's still not enough. We are working on a pilot program with Revere High School where we will actually set up a plumbing elective at Revere High School to allow students who either don't get accepted or want to continue at Revere High School on a college track, but still want the opportunity to see if there are trades out there that they'd find interesting. So that's, again, something we're hoping. Yes?
So is that just one class, or is that an actual track for plumbing at the actual high school?
Right, so it will be a pilot program, and it will be a 2-year program. So our hope is to expand it to other cities and towns and to expand the programs as well. But we wanted to start out small and see what challenges and obstacles we would have and see how it was received as well. But it is something that we'd love to expand across the board. I think we changed our focus from being a vocational school that serves a district of 12 to being a vocational district that supports all 12 cities and towns in various ways, not just at our building. So,
and one follow-up. So
yeah.
I think one of the challenges with vocational schools is the equipment and, you know, the accommodations.
Great.
How do you deal with those challenges in, in a traditional high school?
Great point. So we were selective as far as what we were going to teach. So we sat down with the Revere High School administration and said, what will work at your high school? So obviously, things like welding and things that required a lot of safety equipment didn't work for us. At first, we were reluctant to teach about plumbing until our plumbing staff reminded us that PVC obviously is very safe and is widely used, and that they could spend years just teaching code, PVC projects. They can also come up to Northeast from time to time. We have transportation that if we want to delve into some of the other plumbing aspects that require a torch or a soldering iron, that they could come up as well. But it is going to be a learning process for us as well. But I think it's something that we really need to do, to expect one school, regardless of the size, to serve that many students in 12 communities on hands-on approaches is not going to ever happen. So we've really changed our focus, and we hope at some point, whether it be a couple of years from now, we might be up here with North Reading working on some programs that you find your students are interested in, but don't want to leave the public school here. So a lot's going on, and as
we are open to that, by the way. You know, if Dr. Daly ever wants to get in touch with us and with some kind of request, we're open to that.
Have you had other communities that are doing that?
we have others that are interested in, once they heard we were, so we said, well, let's work with Revere next year. Let's see how it goes, and then we'll reach back out to some of the other communities as well. So we're hoping it's a success.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask for a building update. And
Yeah, sure.
see kind of how that's going on, because I know I've seen some of the challenges with the location, so I'd love to hear about that as well. But just overall, I mean, can you remind us, like, what was the timeline and what's the plan?
So we're pretty much on timeline. We had a little setback with some of the local commissions in Wakefield, as anyone who has ever done work on their house, let alone built a $317 million school. There are a lot that goes into it. We are happy. We started work already. So we started utilities, we started site work. The bulk of the work will hopefully begin in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I know it's going to be a lot of work, and I know, we've had some challenges. Again, you don't just drop a $317 million building on a plot of land and expect the neighbors and all other sorts of special interests aren't going to have, rightfully so, their say and their opinion. So we've worked through that. It's very similar. If any of you were on the board when this school was built, I recall some of the challenges with ledge and some of the challenges with building on a hill. It's not the plains of Wyoming. We have challenges no matter what, but we have some great teams. I have a great advisory team for our students with disabilities that we've been working with, and I think we've gone through probably the most challenging part, and that was getting the correct information out to people. Because we can release press releases and we can do videos, but we can't make people watch them. So, but as you know, what happens is word of mouth becomes much more powerful. And so to correct a lot of the incorrect statements that have been said over the past few months has been work. And I think we've gotten out to the people. And in fact, we met with the North Reading Town Council, and they were the selectmen, and they were great
last month.
And I think they appreciated us correcting some of the falsehoods related to our project.
I signed in at the very end of it, so.
Yeah.
I was just listening online.
Right.
But eventful.
Yeah, but we respect the opinion of the public, and I know I live literally 100 yards from where a new school is being built, and that's 3 doors down, and I know it's going to affect my life, so I understand the anxiety of neighbors and people in the community as such. But I think when all is said and done, I think it's going to be a great project.
It's going to be a gorgeous school, no
And
doubt.
the goal is it's not opening next year, it's opening the year after that, is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so,
That's a
so you haven't seen,
timeline.
so the applications are now for next year, and then the following year, you said, so 1,000 for 330 seats. The following year, how many seats would
Yep.
that go up
So
to?
1,600. There'll be
It would go
1,600
from
total
300
seats.
Wait, is that, but that's for
Oh,
all four
1,600.
Oh,
classes?
1,600 total.
Oh.
I'm sorry, so yeah,
For freshmen, it would be
400.
400, so it's only
Yeah.
going up 70?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and again, it's still not enough.
Yeah.
The toughest part is we kind of look at Essex Tech on how their application numbers changed when they built a new school. So they had 700 applications their first year, and they felt comfortable that they could start accepting all of their students. I believe now they're getting 2,000 applications a year. So it's still going to have that challenge of not being able to accept enough students
Well,
for the
that's a
programs.
validation for your, this Revere pilot that you're doing, because
Yeah.
we're never gonna, in a perfect world, we're never gonna build enough vocational schools to meet that need. But if we can expand these programs
Right.
where it makes sense in some of those districts, then it just opens up more opportunities.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the future of vocational
Sort
education.
of circles back to, when I was in high school, there was a vocational school in the high school, and
Right.
you could do both even at the high school, so.
Well, what,
In Massachusetts, because Massachusetts is outstanding with vocational schools at the high school level. You don't see that in any of the neighboring states, to my knowledge. I
Right.
know, we get calls from people in New Hampshire looking to send their kids down here, and we're very lucky to have Chapter 74 programs and things at the high school level here in Massachusetts.
So when you talk about the Saturday program and you
Yep.
talk about like the Revere pilot, so if somebody goes to the school, they get a degree from the school, and then that allows them, I mean, for an employer hiring, they would look to that. If you did a pilot within a school, or you did the Saturday, did they get some sort of certificate,
Yep.
something that like can be beneficial? Would that still be somebody that, even if it was just, I can imagine, like we see lots of different elective courses coming in. We
Right.
see we have excellent fine arts teachers, who are trying to expand like intro to theater, things like that for students that want to go there. If it's just if it's just through a high school, I mean, would they get some sort of certificate? Like, how does that compare to the
Right.
degree? I mean, would employers still be looking at
Yep.
somebody that, at least they have some
Right.
some experience?
So we look at a couple things. So we do a certificate, but we also want to make sure it counts and it's not just a piece of paper that we printed. What we've done is identify certifications for each of the shop areas that students, upon graduation, and some even before graduation, are eligible for. And that's our goal. So we recently started working with the Department of Corrections for inmates as well. So it's the same idea. So when they get released from jail, other than saying they went to an elective, what can they say they have in their hand that can put them over another applicant? So like in HVAC, there's a refrigeration certification. In our health assisting, our students work towards first aid certification. Our day students work towards a CNA certification. Ms. Diamond's background was as a cosmetology teacher, and upon graduation, they get
Their license, they have their license as a junior in high school, most cases, and they're out in the field working in their senior year.
Yep. So the
That would be an introduction to it, but you wouldn't be able to, a certificate wouldn't do in that particular trade.
So the last week of the program for all students is meeting with one of our career counselors to develop pathways and to show them where they could go. So they might come to Northeast and they can do a mini exploratory and go through all the shops, and they realize halfway through they really like a certain program. And that's when we would work with them. We also, because we have a night school program that also teaches the majority of the programs, we offer scholarships to our night school programs for these students. And also they're very, very reasonably priced as well. So many of them will continue when they graduate and work towards a plumber, electrical license, or some other trade.
And with with regards to the numbers, if I recall, most years North Reading actually doesn't fill the slots that it has.
Right.
Do you have any idea for next year? I mean, have we filled all the slots, or has every student that wanted to get in been able to get a seat or not?
Right, so the application just coming in, but it's been very consistent.
Okay.
All the students that, from North Reading, that meet the general criteria, passing 7th and 8th grade of math and English, and don't have any, 37H and a half serious expulsions, predominantly get in.
Okay.
So I do see more of a challenge when the new school opens, and again, that's something I saw with Essex Tech, where I live in Swampscott right now, and very few students were looking towards Essex Tech. And when the new school was built and there was a lot of publicity, it has become a lot more competitive from our town for students to get in.
And actually, sorry, I keep saying last question, but one.
I love questions. That's why we don't do a presentation.
I know, they know better, but, I mean, one more, like, I know, because my son is an 8th grader now, and so I actually looked a little bit at some of the course offerings. So I know when you build a new school, there'll be a few more spots. Is it the same curriculum, the same classes that there'll be more of? Or are there going to be new areas as well being introduced with the new space?
Yep, we're bringing in a couple new programs. We're bringing in marketing, we're bringing in medical assistant, biotechnology is coming in. So we wouldn't be surprised by the time the school opens, we're looking at another 2 or 3 more Chapter 74 programs that are becoming very, very well sought after. But, we are trying to, hold on to our mission, which is to give students opportunities straight out of high school. And a lot of vocational schools have gotten away from that, and we've tried to bring in programs that you can still go to college, and there may be more opportunities to go to college in an area, but you don't have to go to college. And one of the things I talked about was our robotics and automation. So people talk more robotics, it's more automation. And we resisted bringing in that program because there were not entry-level certifications or jobs until the past couple of years, when all of the new automation systems that were put in 10, 15 years ago started breaking down. And rather than pay people from California to come over, they started certifying and hiring automation technicians, which you only need a high school diploma for. So that's when we decided to bring in robotics. Same thing with biochemistry. We don't want to compete with students at North Reading High School who want to go to college for those, but lab assistance has become a very, very good job, very high paying, and once again, it only requires a high school diploma to start. So there are a lot of dynamics that go into choosing a program, not just what students might find interesting.
That's great.
And my only suggestion would be, when you list your districts from now on, I think you should go by the order of the percentage of people that voted for the new school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it should go that way. I mean, I don't exactly know what the first one was.
Yes, but
Percentage,
many say that it was because Miss Diamond threatened them, so I don't know if I want that to get out there. A couple more things, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So we just got a food truck on a grant, so very similar to the food trucks you see in Boston, and I think as of today, we filled up the propane tanks, and we're going to be ready to go. So that's one thing. We're going to reach out to the communities first, so if something's going on.
We are coming to North Reading.
Yep.
Of course, we're coming to North.
Right, absolutely. Whether it's to a football game, to the police
And this
station,
is
the
staffed by
fire.
students in a
Yep.
culinary program?
Yep,
Oh, that's so good.
100%, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
So they're very excited.
The
And-
kids are,
yeah.
they're ready to go. They're very
Wow.
excited.
Yeah. We also, this year was our second year competing in Decker, and I'm glad to say we have a group of students going to Disney for the Nationals. So it was very exciting, because I think being a vocational school, competing against all academic schools and being new to the program, to have success like that really, really validated our students' hard work and their belief that they can compete with anybody. So that's pretty exciting.
The business
Yep.
plan program?
Yes, yeah. They won't let me chaperone, but I did offer.
Can you imagine the dog?
that was the next piece on my list here. So we have a student support dog now. Her name's Nori. She's a black lab. And I think even if we didn't have students, that we would want the support dog because it cheers up the staff. I've had more staff members come up to me and say, you know, I was in a rotten mood and I was walking by guidance and I saw Nori wagging her little tail. So it's been really fun. And I do have a little kennel in my office. So if people come to visit me, do you have a dog? And I say, yeah, Nori takes her naps in my office when we give the counselor a break. Who takes care of her.
What's your policy about
I know, we have a 12-page policy to debate on this later on.
Oh, God.
Oh, really?
Greatest thing, come by. Oh, my God.
Is Nori owned, like, is she owned by the school? Like, or is she, like, who takes
Right,
her
so
weekends?
we have
Are you a handler?
no, we have a counselor. So we agreed that we would pay for the dog and the training, and that as long as she stayed for 3 years, that it would be her dog officially afterwards, because she stays with her at home. But I don't think she has any plans of leaving, and we hope to never lose her. And it's just been the greatest thing. Even the naysayers who, when we talked about it, were flipped their tune real quick. And I've got to say, to put things in perspective, when I added up what it cost for Nori and what the training cost, it was still less than a 2-day professional development for a couple of my administrators. So if you don't think, the money is worth it, in perspective, it really is worth every penny.
Good to know.
Is there any specific questions or concerns you have? I'm sure you're reading the newspapers and you're seeing the controversies, and, is there anything that we can rest your mind at ease, or where we're at with that? Or?
I didn't really have any concerns. I mean, I have to admit, I didn't dive into all the details, but yeah, I didn't really have any concerns personally.
It's mainly, I think, the site.
Yeah.
I think people are under the misconception we could just drop this enormous school on a football field. Or that now we can just change it because they don't like it, move it somewhere else. I mean, that's
Right,
where,
yeah,
that's
put it over here.
part of the issue right now, but
Yep.
we're on top of it. I mean, that school will be built, and it will be outstanding, and I think everyone will be proud of it when it's done, but we are building it. I think they're getting that message
Yep,
now.
and,
It'll be something the community's proud of. It'll help build the community. I think it's great.
Yeah. I think one challenge we're looking at right now, and there's going to be a lot of studies looking into it, is the turf field discussion on whether we go with the turf field or an all grass field, and I think we're leaning towards the all grass field at this point. It's not for everybody, but we're hoping that's something. Yep.
I just found something out.
Yep.
When were you telling me that?
Just right now.
I know.
There you go.
You live in North Reading, you got the update with North Reading.
My husband had a lot to do with this turf field here.
Yeah.
As
Going in again this summer.
And I
so.
don't know if any of you knew
Yeah.
him or remembered him, but, he ran Hillview. And a lot of those fundings went into the the turf field and playgrounds.
Critical. I mean, that was basically where most of that funding came from.
I drive by it every day and look at it with pride, so that's great. Well, again, we thank you for having us here. We're available, well, most of the time. we're
All the
available,
time.
To be here. We love the partnership we share, and I brag about it at every school committee meeting, because I don't think the other committee members have the same relationship with their partnering schools like I do. And I take great pride with that, and I thank all of you for allowing me to be part of that, and I know Dave does too, so.
Yep.
We're
And we don't
available
have the date set, but I would love you all to come up and tour the facility as we start building, and we have a groundbreaking, and I think, no doubt Judy would remind me to make sure you all get invited, and we'd love to have you up.
And the school is open for lunch anytime during the day that, you have a day you want to come up and have lunch.
Don't tell us that.
Jody, how many years have you been on the school committee
Oh,
there?
12, I think. 12,
Wow.
13. This is my 13.
So you're the longest tenured school committee member in North Reading. Dr. Daly?
I
And
just
I
want to say
don't-
thank you for the partnerships with, doing projects at our school in the dugouts and different things, and we'd love to continue that as well. Really great job and really great working with the students and the teachers.
And the kids love doing that.
Yeah.
To be part of the communities, and
We really
they love it.
Thank you.
Great, excited for you all. and to
Thanks
see
so
this
much.
Space. The Essex is gorgeous, and I'm sure this one will be even better.
Oh, it's gonna blow it away.
Not going to be that much longer, but I hope next year meeting we'll have a lot of great pictures of where we're at for you.
Great.
because It's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for coming here. Thanks for the
All
update.
right, thanks for having us.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Now, we're on to school committee self-evaluation.
Jeff, all you.
Why don't we go
You're
there?
the master of evaluation.
I saw you said you're gonna put something in a drive. Are you gonna email us a drive so I can find it? Because I don't know where it is.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put our evaluations in, we'll use the same template we've been using in the past. There are a few additions to it that Dr. Daly added on. So we'll add on to that and then start doing our evaluations for the work that we've been doing. I believe that the pieces that have been added on were what we are on, and what goals.
What subcommittees?
Yeah, the subcommittees. Sorry, subcommittees. We need to start looking at those, getting the information back, and then I'm fine putting everything into a common template. I'll probably email everybody directly what they are. I think working from the common drive last year probably wasn't as direct a route, so I'll email everybody the template to work from. Don't worry about meshing it up or whatever, I can put it all back together. And the more important thing to think about is the comments, and if you're leaving comments, just leave initials behind it. I will email instructions as I do that, so you don't just have to rely on my verbal message here. I'll put something in writing.
And Jeff, what made sense to me, what Dr. Daly suggested, which was to do, like, if there's a checkbox, like, scale, like, instead of sort of like, oh, what do we all agree on 3? Just everyone initialing that box where they feel, and then you'll take the average of the responses there.
I'm actually gonna let people who disagree fight it out.
There you go.
The cage.
Good Lord.
One stick.
Thank you.
Anyway, so I'll send that around the next day or so.
One random thought, which I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I will say, who's the NORCAM rep this year? Do we have a NORCAM representative this year?
Is it Rich still?
No, I think it was me.
I think it's you,
Is it you?
Yeah.
'Cause I ran into the person from NORCAM the other day, and she was,
No one sends me anything on when the meetings are. Am I supposed to look them up myself?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. We'll have to get you connected.
One of the
with
reasons
those
I
guys.
stopped.
I can reach out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Rob and make sure he knows.
Okay.
Make sure they know, just because she was like, who's our, I don't actually remember
No,
who it
that's
is
me.
now, so, okay.
Thank you. I haven't even.
One quick question, I guess, to everybody. I was gonna send it around with the last evaluation's information in there, so you had that as a reference. Or would you prefer me to blank everything out and then start fresh? Which would you, or do you want one of each? Which, and you,
I mean,
guess you don't have to
I
decide now.
personally, I think seeing it is helpful. I mean, you could italicize it or do, you
No,
know,
that's
so we
fine.
can, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
So you know that you're not building off of someone else's current response or something like that. Just, or that we know that that's what you're sending out.
Okay, that's fine. That works.
And we're presenting that at the April 24th meeting?
I believe so. We're doing it before the next,
Yeah, just in case I
Before-
get voted out, so.
yeah, before the next election.
Yeah, so 2 meetings from
Yeah.
now.
You can tell me how bad I did
I
before.
don't think so. I think it's right? It's the 10th? Isn't it
10th
The
of
next
April.
I thought we was,
I'm not sure what's on the agendas. There is a meeting on the 10th and on the 24th, but I'm not.
I'm pretty sure we were gonna have it back on the 10th, to do it on the 10th.
Yeah, we're-
Because that would be before the, it says to do it a month before the election. So, but
That'd
if
be
you,
the 10th.
if you'd rather have more time, that's fine too.
No,
We wrote the 10th on the document, but
It shouldn't
we can
take,
certainly
shouldn't take
discuss.
time.
Can I just ask, is today the 4th Monday, by the way, in the month?
It's the last Monday of the month.
Just
yeah.
pointing out,
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Follow the policies.
I think that, I would just say to that,
I agree we should be different.
I think we should, there've been a lot of extra things
That
on
have
their
sort of
side.
thrown it
So
off, yeah.
They, you know,
Yeah, talk to them.
Correct.
well,
I agree.
I'm just saying, there's
He
a
did.
lot going on.
Yeah, and I mean,
think
we
we should
had
get
to
back to
change one for, I think it was Rosh Hashanah or something,
Yeah.
but it's
Hopefully
like,
we
I
can
think.
get back to,
we
or
can
they
be
can get
consistent.
back to it, but, you know, this half year has been kind of crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that it, I think the comment too is that if you both are doing the second and fourth, then you're always gonna conflict, right? So.
But they're supposed to do the first and third.
Yeah, that's the unofficial, the sort of.
They're on, yes.
To spread them, yeah.
Well, it's actually in our policies, second and fourth.
Ours, but I
Ours,
don't know,
yes.
we don't know if it's in theirs, but, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the policies. I'm gonna do the policies together, I feel like. Or should we do the there's only one policy, and then I'm gonna do the contracts together, so. Who wants to lead us in the animal discussion? Policy committee?
I like we had the little pitch for the dog there.
Was not planned. Worked out nicely.
You probably have it up in front of you, right, Dr. Daly?
Yeah, I
The-
can put it up on
We have it. I mean, do you wanna just kind of
Yeah, it's,
open it up for comments and questions first, or, and then we'll do a motion afterwards?
If I could, Mr. Buckle, I
Yes,
could
go ahead.
share. I mean, you did mention the length of it. One of the things we did discuss was, would we prefer to do, do the animal policy separate from the other piece? So we could do a second one just for the service, social, emotional. and
Two
comfort.
policies, you're saying?
We could, I mean, if we feel it's very, I mean, this is standalone. A lot of districts did like an IMGA or something just for the comfort, social emotional therapy dog.
I mean, the only concern I'd have with splitting it up is then you have a policy that says no animal shall be brought into the school without prior permission of the building principal.
Yeah,
And if that policy stands alone, you don't have,
that's why we kept it.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think if it's gonna start with that, it should probably all be together, so. And I have a few questions if other people don't.
Go for it.
Dead animals, I brought that up the last time. I'm just worried about science classes or things, like, I mean, do they not use dead animals in science class ever?
They do, but is that the same thing?
I would say no.
I would say no.
So we can
I mean, that's,
I mean, we say no animals in there, whatever, but I mean, I would think we should just, I would personally just take out the including dead animals and not specify it. I don't know. That was one thought I had. And then,
And that's in the MASC language, right? That's in the first 3 or 4 pages?
yeah, first page under animals prohibited from school.
Yeah.
It just says like wild animals and domestic stray animals, and then it says including dead animals. But I'm like, if it's preserved properly, I mean, I
I
don't
think that's referring to dead wild animals as opposed to educational.
strays.
Correct.
Right.
Like,
the
I
animals-
found this outside.
The
Brought it
animal-
in.
Yeah,
the
that's what
animals they
they're-
use in science classes are provided by a company
Yeah.
Right.
that's their product.
Right.
Also, there's where it says an educational program, use of animals to achieve specific curriculum objectives will
Yeah.
be allowed.
I
I
think
think it falls into,
Yeah. That was,
it's right
again,
here, the guidelines for animals in school grounds. That's where dissection and owl pellets or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
that was just that was one concern. And then on the second page, when it's exceptions can be made to with the prior approval of the superintendent of schools, everything's based on the building principal, but then the exception to that is the superintendent. I was just curious why that is, because everything's left to the building principal, but then it says exceptions can be made to the policy by approval of the superintendent of schools. And that
maybe
just seemed
that's
like-
just on the overall, like,
And that's right,
these prohibited animals.
that's a line right above service, above the subsection,
Like-
service animals.
For example, this, an instance where I can see that being relevant, believe it or not, I have an example, is there is a wildlife rescue, Northeast wildlife rehabilitator who rehabilitates like porcupines and skunks and things like that. And they've started educating in schools, so they may at some point be like, you know, maybe at some day down the road, bringing in like, this is the beaver that was rescued. And that would be something that would go to Dr. Daly first, right, before a building principal. That's the way I
we
see
can-
it.
And it's also or designee, so it's, the principal can be the designee.
Okay.
It's,
Well, it doesn't say it in that one. It just,
Which line are you referring to?
it's, right before
Right
service
above
animals.
service animals, right here.
it's, to me, it's more,
I was just
in
curious.
case of emergency, break glass.
Yeah.
You always have something out there that can make an exception for someone. You
Yeah.
can make an exception when in doubt. I viewed it as more of that type of thing.
I mean, it could be,
It's not necessary, it's not inherently to override the judgments of a principal. I look at it more as in addition to rather than instead of.
Yeah, I read it that line is that if there's an exception, I need to know about it, not just the principal, which I think is good.
yeah. Again, I just, it was just different than everything else. Was like, it's up to the principal, you know, and then.
Because the
but that
principal.
was your discretion,
Sorry.
yeah.
I would say because the principal in that case would be following the policy. When there's an exception to the policy, that's when I need to get involved. Right? 'Cause-
That's how
Yeah.
I read it.
Because
If the principal wants to make a case for an exception to the policy, he should come to you.
Exactly.
You know, are horses the only exception to the dog part?
Yeah, I do not see the miniature horses being utilized, but that.
Guys, you're so
that is the
disappointing.
one, I know. That is the one piece that's written in the law, yeah.
Okay. Oh, and the one actual legitimate one that I do think is important. Under district expectations, it says the building principal must approve the use of a comfort dog in the school. Should we also have to approve the handler? I would think that the specific handler should also have to be approved by the principal, and I did not see that in there.
That's a fair point.
And then,
I mean, it's sort of implied.
It's implied, but
It's
it's
implied,
probably-
but it should be explicit.
yeah, I think the handler should have to
The
be
dog
approved by the
and the
principal.
handler.
Yeah.
Yep, we can just add that right to number
That's-
one.
Yeah, no, that makes
Dog
sense.
and handler, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Service or the comfort,
yes.
a child may have to have a pet with them just to stay calm during the day, so they wouldn't have. So the child would be the handler.
In which case, that's a little different.
That would
It's
be
more-
considered a service animal.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is, like a different category, yeah.
Yeah, that was the only other. My last question was just on the insurance one. I wasn't really sure what that was about. Employee-owned dog, the North Reading Public Schools will reimburse a dog handler for a certificate of insurance,
Sure.
which will be kept. There's a cost to get insurance, we're not paying for the insurance. It's the cost of the certificate?
We reviewed about 3 or 4 different policies that had different types of insurance. We checked with our own insurance provider, Michael did this work. And this was the language that they shared. I don't know if they shared anything additional with you, Michael, or?
No, there's a couple ways to do it, but this was what they felt, that we should get the handler and the dog sort of listed as additionally insured on our certificate. Or us should be listed on their certificate as additionally insured should anything happen. We should require that they have insurance and that we be listed as additionally insured.
And the cost of acquiring
The
that,
cost of acquiring it
not the insurance itself,
would be
but the.
reimbursed by us.
So that's if the employee, if our employee owns the dog, we're asking them to do this and bring it to school.
Yep.
We would reimburse them for the cost of that certificate. If it's an outside handler coming in, that's a different story.
Yeah. They're just
They
language.
would be expected to have insurance. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it was just like the cost of the certificate of insurance, but I'm like, are we buying the insurance for them, or just,
Yeah.
there's a cost of, there's a cost to become an additional insured, and that's what we're paying for?
Less than
Okay.
$50.
Okay, that's all. Anybody else have questions or concerns? I did read it, so.
You did.
So I think with the exception of just like the handler having to be
Yeah.
Yeah,
approved.
no, I think that was a.
That's a good call.
Yes, Dr.
Michael just raised a good point. Should we write in there about Corey check for the handler as well?
Yes.
If they're from the outside,
Write that
absolutely.
in.
Yeah.
We typically do that with anyone coming in, but I think especially if it's an outside person.
Yeah.
We could just
Yep.
add that. to-
Yep.
No, good point.
Yeah, we missed that.
I mean, again, I think the approver yes, I think we should put it in, but like, I think also the approval could be, you know, any handler would have to meet all the requirements for the district
Yeah.
at the time, so.
So we could do that with that first line, maybe with the principal, we could add in the handler and will be appropriately quality checked. We don't quality check the dogs, so.
Yes. Dogs are under 18, right? So, like, for soccer, like, you can ref if you're 12, but you can't ref if you're 19 and you're not certified.
Exactly.
But dog ears.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the first reading of, well, let me make a motion on the first reading of this. Or I can do it if you want.
Maybe
IMG.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of policy IMG as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous. Okay.
I was so
Contracts.
bummed I couldn't be there for the guy presentation to the guy last
Uh-huh.
night.
Oh,
was
he
pretty
was so
awesome.
sweet.
Yeah, most things aren't quite as hands-on, and
Right.
that was the one you
Yeah.
missed, so.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with the North Reading custodians contract, and Mr. Connolly, are you gonna talk
Yes.
about this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, we concluded, collective bargaining with the North Reading custodians, and I thought the process went very well. It was a very kind of collaborative, open dialogue. And the terms of the new contract with the custodians are summarized in sort of the bulleted points in the memorandum that was provided in the packet. Some of the highlights include is a 3-year term that would take us through fiscal '24 through fiscal '26. July 1, 2023 through June 30th of 2026. Does include a 3% cost of living adjustment of each year of the contract. There were sort of minor contract language modifications, sort of throughout the contract that we were more of an attempt to kind of clean up language, make things that could be considered kind of gray, more clear, and what we felt best reflected kind of best practices of really around accrued time during a custodian's probationary period, which actually is a year in length for the custodians. Their reduction in forced callback period was reduced from 2 years to 18 months. There were minor changes to the uniform allowance section where the district will now provide reflective vests, hats, and gloves, along with the shirts and sweatshirts to each custodian. And then there were some modifications to the stipend schedule that really was cleanup language that we had previously sort of agreed to in some side letters during that previous contract term around some new stipend positions that didn't really reflect a lot of kind of new money or new additional funds, but it was sort of a cleanup of language that better reflected some of the leadership positions that do exist, that were added, sort of like an inventory associate that was added during sort of COVID time that we felt was necessary to track a lot of PPE and different supplies and materials. We felt like it's important that continue. And we added some team leader positions at the secondary level to help with shift transitions and so forth. And those kind of liaisons to both the director of facilities as well as the head custodians. So we kind of cleaned that up and reflected what's kind of actually occurring. So those are really the main highlights of what occurred. And I think it was a really good process. We got this done in 2 meetings. I really appreciate School Committee Chair Scott Buckley for his assistance during the collective bargaining. Also, Patrick Daly and Morgan Sorez, the new Human Resources Administrator, participated, and it was a very productive conversation and dialogue. So I appreciate everyone's support. With that, I'll open up to any questions, and there is a recommended motion to approve the amendment.
I'll just make a comment and thank you, Mr. Connolly, because you did the bulk of the work. You led the discussions and, you know, at all parts of it, you were excellent as always in there, and just want to, you know, appreciate the custodians as well, because it was very clear from the very beginning that, you know, we have a good working relationship with them. Nobody was really trying to throw bombs to, you know, blow anything up. I think we respect the work that they do. I think they respect working, you know, how we treat them, and it was very collaborative and just a very easy process. So I appreciate their work. I appreciate your work, Michael, and it was a pleasure to meet with them. So there's no other questions? Could somebody make the motion?
I will move that the school committee vote to approve the terms highlighted above of the new custodian's contract for a 3-year term from July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2026, as recommended by the administration.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Michael, I don't know if you have that ready to be signed, or?
I do have the memorandum of agreement that I want to just clarify and get signed.
Okay.
And then we've actually updated the contract in track changes, and we will send it to them now.
Okay. Whatever you need, just tell me, and I'll swing by to do that.
They've officially ratified as well.
Okay, I'll sign whatever you need whenever. So I'm gonna just jump ahead since we're talking about contracts and go to the administrative assistant contract as well. And I turn it over to Mr. Connolly again.
I don't know if,
Want me to read? I can do this one, yeah?
Oh, Dr. Dell, you wanna do this one?
Sure, so the administrative assistants met with us on Tuesday, March 23rd, and we voted to accept the memorandum of agreement. They have ratified that with their group as well. Similar 3-year term through FY '26. We have a 2.5 cost of living adjustment, but there were some adjustments to the steps. So it's a very similar cost of living adjustment to what we committed to with the custodians as well. We removed the first 2 steps of the Shallot grid, added a new step 10. We're going to renumber those steps. We made some minor contractual language, which actively and accurately reflects the current rules and best practices. There are some updates to, we added some language around an improvement plan for supporting any underperforming staff. And we clarified language around vacation day accruals and some carryover provisions. So there were not any significant changes. We have Mr. Friedman, who worked with us from the school committee, Morgan Soros as well, who participated. It was very pleasant. I don't think we did it in 2, but maybe it was 3 sessions. But we have a great team of both our custodians and our administrative assistants do wonderful work here. We were happy to come to an agreement.
Everybody said it was the best process they've ever had.
All I gotta say is you and Rich are ready for that NREA next year.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, we'll see how I do with the paras this year. Looking forward to it, though.
Yes.
It should be a good process.
Okay. Thank Jeff, any comments, or?
No, it was, just as what was discussed, it was a very collaborative process. And I think everybody appreciated each other's efforts in working together to get this done. And you know, anytime you have a deal where everyone walks away thinking it works, it's a pretty good sign. So I thought it was great.
And I think, just a general comment on both of those is, I think we understand the challenges financially, but we want to have a respectful appreciation for the people that work here. We want to attract excellent people. We want to retain them, and I think it's very important. One of our main jobs people don't talk about is making sure that we have contracts in place with all of our unions. So I'm happy that we were able to do it. So thank you, guys. Can we have the motion? Mr. Friedman, you want to make your motion?
Motion to accept the North Reading Administrative Assistants Association contract.
Second.
Do you want to clarify for the record? Do you want more clarified for the record, Michael, or not? Doesn't matter.
Recommended motion.
Be the recommended motion. Just for the
I
record.
went to the trouble of writing a recommended motion.
At the bottom.
At the bottom.
School committee, school committee vote to approve, motion to have the school committee vote to approve the terms highlighted above for the Administrative Assistants Association new 3-year contract that will cover the term of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026, as recommended by the administration.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank Thank
For
you
the
very
record, mine
much.
was much more succinct.
Well, then it's in the record how long it is at least. so.
Mr. Chairman, we take a 5-minute break.
Oh, yes, we can do that. We're gonna have a discussion. A quick 5-minute
It's gonna
break
be
for
I
anybody.
don't know
that
how long
needs.
it'll be, but it's
Yeah, we got more to
something
go.
to think about, yeah.
We will be back, just a 5-minute break.
Christmas time, it would probably work better.
So do you want to
Okay.
give a, well, I guess we can talk about before
Let's hear.
before
Well,
school fees first, and then we can sort of generally talk about the rest of it.
Yeah, well, why don't we start with like a general introduction to the next 3 topics, which are
Yep.
the fees. And I think one of the parts that the school committee hates the most is having to assess any fees. I don't think anybody on this committee likes having fees for public education, but I hope the public appreciates that by having fees for programs that are not required by the state, that allows us to do more. It allows us to have more programs, more after-school activities, more sports offered. You know, it just allows us to do more. And so it's a necessary part of it, unfortunately. And so every once in a while, we do have to look at those fees and see if they are supporting what we want them to support. And so that's the introduction to tonight. And we're going to begin, and Mr. Connolly, we're going to let him begin on talking about the before-school childcare program. And just to be clear, this is run by North Reading.
Correct.
And it's for early drop-offs, for if parents can't, need to drop off before school. And how many students are in this program right now? Do you know?
So the numbers have gone down over the last few years. I think partly I think the change of start times impacted that. I think the pandemic had a little bit of impact. They're starting to grow, but I think currently there are, I want to say, 82 total students across the 4 schools that we're offering it.
Okay.
So that's the 3 elementary, and we do offer a middle school program now
Okay.
as well. So it's not a large population of families across the 3 schools, but that's exactly right. So this is the before school childcare program run and operated by the North Reading Schools. So this does fall under the jurisdiction of the school committee in terms of the rates. I think we've certainly worked hard for the number of years since this program has been in existence to keep this a very affordable program for families and an affordable option. And I think we've been able to do that. We realized a few years ago that we had to start adjusting the rates on somewhat of a rolling basis, because we're only looking to cover the direct cost of the program. So the program is generally staffed by some of its paraprofessionals, some food service workers, folks that are opting to kind of come in a little bit early and supervise and oversee the program. And we generally want to just cover the labor and cover the costs and have a little bit of to maybe buy some funds, supplies and materials and activities for the students that may be participating. So that's what we're looking to do. I believe the last time I was in front of you to increase the rates was about 3 years ago, 2020-21, for the 2021 fiscal 21 school year, so we're talking about the fiscal 24 school year now. And I think I said these adjustments should be good for 3 years. So we didn't want to be in a situation where we're coming every year, increasing rates. We wanted to kind of look at it, project forward, and if there needed to be a rate adjustment, it was going to carry us for a few years. So we're kind of back at that point again. We reviewed the numbers. We're looking at some of the rates of the staff, which do go up kind of modestly by cost of living each year, and we're projecting forward, and we anticipate that we need to be kind of a small adjustment this year to keep the program moving forward. And we're hoping to have that same approach, that if this were to be approved, that we wouldn't be back here again for a few years for this program. We're just looking for a few $1,000s more in anticipated revenue to cover some costs. I think that some of the information that was included within surrounding communities that run similar programs, as we do our hour and 15-minute programs. This isn't very long. It's 7 to 8 at the elementary schools. Staff get there a little bit earlier to set up and so forth. But at the middle school, it's generally a 7:30 to 8:30 program. We include breakfast run by the food service program as well. So we looked at similar programs, and I think that even with what we're recommending this evening, as I would say a modest increase or adjustment, inflationary kind of cost of living adjustment here, I believe we're still very kind of affordable and lower than some of the area communities that are running a similar type program, and that's important. We want it to be that way for the community, and we think this still achieves that.
And just to be clear, as you said, this is going to cover the cost of the actual program as opposed to having to take it out of the general fund, the general budget.
Correct.
And so that's the goal here, is to not to make money to use for something else. It's just to cover the cost of the program so that we don't have to supplement it out of the general budget.
Correct. Yeah, and we feel like these adjustments still keeps it affordable, still keeps we try to break it down on the daily cost per day. I think if you look at some of the information, it's kind of it's a minor increase, and we're still in some of these area communities running similar type programs, 5 days, 4 days, 3 or 2 days a week. We're still affordable and much less expensive in many ways. So I think the breakdown in the number of students is kind of included here. So I think I said 82. I think that should check out if you look at the page where you go through the rates and the program comparison. Majority of the families are elected to be there 5 days a week. I don't know if they use it 5 days a week, but they might. I think because it's affordable, they're electing to have that option, so that flexibility is there for them, as you can see.
Okay.
So
Thank you very much. Any question? My only question, and we're getting late, and Diana will smack me if I ask too many questions, but I will just say, what the proposed increase is, like $3 for one and $2.50 for another and $4 for the other. Just curious someday about why $2.50 for one of them and $3 for the other one, but we don't have to go down that road.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at keeping the cost per day low as we can. There's also breaks in the number of, the more children you have, you pay less. So,
Yeah.
we're kind of running it.
73 probably would have been okay, but.
But we ran some of the numbers, and I think this gets us that additional revenues. You can see the projection is a little over $3,000, and that will cover its costs, our costs.
Excellent. Any questions?
No, that's very reasonable.
If there's none, will somebody make the motion?
I will move that the school committee vote to approve the before-school children rate increases for the 23-24 school year as recommended by the administration.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you very much, Mr. Connolly.
Pardon?
Yes,
Yeah.
just a second. Now, the next two, as Rich was saying, one of the goals that he and I have for the school committee this year is to look into a fee cap and just overall fees. And so, as part of talking about that, as I mentioned the other day, we were also looking at things like the bus fee. And I think you saw in the presentation, the original budget presentation, what percentage is being funded by fees, what percentage is being funded by the general school fund. And, a few years ago, this was, it was supposed to be 50% of it, and we're well short of that. I'll let Rich comment and then turn it over to Mr. Connolly, but I'll just add, Mr. Connolly, I think this was one of the best things I've ever seen. Like the whole, the history of all of the fees, extremely, extremely useful. So I thank you for putting that together, because my memory's not great, and it only goes back a few years. So this was excellent to help us.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, I think we should keep this up to date, and we should, this should be something that we. This would be great to be in the budget book every year.
My
honestly.
president, Carl Nelson, started this, and I just kept it going, so
Yeah.
my predecessor. So.
It's great. And Mr. McGowan, do you have any comments before?
Yeah, so the original charge from the school committee goal was to look at the bus fee and the extracurricular fees, the after-school extracurriculars, the athletic fees, and the fine arts fees. And I think our biggest concern that came out of the goal was, are there families who are paying combined just an exorbitant amount of money, and is there anything we can do to provide a little bit of relief for a family that is paying $1,800 or $2,000 or $2,200 in fees just because of their circumstances, having a lot of children doing different things, or one child doing many things. And so that's how we really started, and thanks to work from Michael and the folks in his department pulling together the fees as they've been coming in. We do see that, there are a handful of families that are just paying, as I say, up to and even over $2,000 a year, which is an awful lot. I think, so we can have a discussion, and we will have a discussion about all of those things. One of the things I thought was really came out of that slide from the budget presentation of the percentages covered was there's a lot of variation there. And one of the things we've talked about is, should we be setting a target percentage for each of these programs and trying to maintain those fees within a range around that target percentage, which then gives us a mechanism to maybe eventually, maybe we lower that percentage a little bit and lower that fee a little bit one year, and rather than, it makes things sort of consistent and then gives us a mechanism to maybe give some relief. But we also have some challenges on the fees the way they are right now, and how much they're actually covering, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and I think on the bus fee for the first one, I mean, the thing to note that from Mr. Connolly's spreadsheet here is, it hasn't been increased in 6 years. It hasn't been increased in 6 years, and if you look back, I mean, there were, $21,000, $22,000 increases. Fiscal year 22, $138,000 because we added more buses. $9,000, $18,000, $18,000, and coming up over the next 3 years, it's going to be $150,000, increase over 3 years. And so we're only about 30% is being paid for by the fees right now. And, if we didn't do the busing that we're not required to do, we would eliminate half the buses and half the fee. And so, so I think we have to make a change this year. And I think the increase this coming fiscal year is not as great as the next two, but if you look at the upcoming ones, it's 21,600 this coming year, and then it's almost 65,000 each of the next 2 years after that. And then it would be a new and that's assuming we stay with the contract we're in, because we think that might be the best we're gonna get. And so I just think we have to be out in front of it, because I don't think we can assess, a $400 increased fee in 1 year. So I think we need to really be on top of this, and, I think we probably, we can't go back in time and change what we've done, but we haven't addressed it, so I think we have to address it today. And so, Mr. Conley, you want to add anything?
Yeah, the reason why we're kind of giving some additional data, as Rich and Scott just talked about, for the school bus transportation is just because of the extraordinary expense and increases that we've seen for the last, little under a decade or so. So it's, the memo that was in the package is attempts to kind of describe some of the cost challenges we've particularly seen in this area of the budget, dating back to fiscal 17, when that market really did change. And you can, by looking at the table on page 1 of that memo, the going rates back were very, 280, 285 was very similar as a per bus per day. And then because of a variety of factors which haven't gotten much better since 2017, Affordable Health Care Act, the new Sick Time Law Act, which gave more benefits to drivers, cost of fuel, prevailing wage rates have gone up, and there's just a general shortage of bus drivers to begin with, which didn't get, unfortunately, helped during the pandemic. There's challenges just getting certified licensed drivers through the registration and so forth, which the state has stepped in and tried to help during the pandemic. The cost, we've seen what the cost of equipment has has done over the last few years with just inflation and supply shortage issues. So nothing in this sort of market is, from a cost standpoint, has kind of helped or it's been challenging, and that's reflected in the rates that we've received from going back out to bid, which we're required to do, at least once every 3 or 5 years. And we've seen that percentage really change, maybe more than the others, as Rich spoke of. Back in 2017, we really were close to 50% of what's being covered in the general fund and what's being covered by the user fee, and now we are at 30%. So there's been some cost challenges. We did add the 11th and 12th bus, and that was something we felt was important, and we absorbed that cost back in fiscal '22. And then as we look to the future, unfortunately, as Scott explained, we're not seeing it get much easier from a cost standpoint. So that was really attempt to kind of explain what's happening with this market and with bus rates and what's happening in the future. And we obviously always wanted as much of the dollars in the general fund and anywhere to go to education, and to be less kind of driven by the operational end of things, whether it be busing, utilities, maintenance, and we always are trying to do what we can to not move that pendulum, over more to kind of operational costs. But sometimes it's a reality. You have to kind of run a service, and it's an important service not only for the schools. I think it's an important service for the community in terms of just traffic flow in the mornings, in the afternoons, just safe transportation. School bus transportation is safe, okay, in general. I think that's everything will kind of show that, in terms of the stats, and we think it's important, and a lot of families participate in the program, whether they're part of the free program, which again is K through 6 greater than 2 miles, or if they're opting into the program and paying for the user fee, because they're either in grade 7 through 12, or they're within the distance range of 2 miles in K through 6. So we have about, I would say, pretty close to 50% of families in North Reading are taking advantage of it, or maybe even a little bit more than that in reality. So it's an important program. It's an important service. There's been a long-standing goal of the school committee not to increase user fees in all areas for a number of years, so we've not tried to do that. So as the last time, as I think Scott mentioned, we did this back in 2017. We did that we didn't want to do that. But we felt at the time, as you saw, that was the $70,200 increase. We felt like we had no choice to not impact the educational program that significantly. So that was the last increase you saw. And we've been kind of dealing with the increases since, and I think what Scott and Richard and what the table shows is we're now going to be seeing numbers pretty close to that $70,000 one-year increase if we continue with the current contract. So I think we're at that sort of crossroads in terms of the user fee and what we do. No one wants to increase fees. That's the last thing we want to see happen. We've worked hard for that not to happen. But I think we're kind of at that discussion point. That's why we're putting it as sort of a separate agenda item today. The other piece of interesting information that I tried to pull together as quickly as I could is the last piece of that memorandum, which was comparable rates. So this is also important. So obviously it's our costs and what we're doing and what's happening in North Reading. But I think if we look at what's happening on the North Shore, this provides some context to where other districts are, who I think many are facing the same challenges, some of which don't have a large of a program as North Reading. So 12 buses is pretty large. So their impact is not as great, and from a economies of scale standpoint, if they see an increase. But it's where we're currently at. I think it's just fair to say we are currently at one of the higher rates, at the moment, so. So that's important to look at as well, if you look at the table.
I wonder how on earth some of these communities are able to keep the bus fees so low.
I know, I wonder that, I wonder that, I don't,
Like,
yeah,
I mean, even like North Andover, which I think geographically, I think is a lot more spread out than North
Yeah.
Reading.
Well, they're probably just subsidizing out of their budget.
So that's what's happening, yeah.
I
so
mean, they're paying it out of the
they're
budget.
Yeah,
subsidizing out of
but
the
like,
budget.
They're able to
but
make
that's a
that.
tough, but, and then, I don't know,
Yeah, so what you've seen, so Winchester's high, they've increased theirs
Yeah, that's
over the last few
Okay.
years. Winchester runs a similar program as we do. But you're right, so by looking at it, we are one of the higher.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this table.
Yeah, the table's wrong.
The table's wrong.
It was right on my Excel, so when
Sure it
when
was.
I went to the PDF, something.
I prefer the table. I think we're a lot.
Yeah, I was like, wow, look at us, and then I scrolled out.
That's weird, 'cause my Word document, that's accurate, so something will happen when I switch to PDF. This was charting the athletic fee at one point, and I switched it, but something happened there. So ignore the table.
Well, they're different districts from above too.
Yeah, it's not, that's something,
Probably
reverted back to an old table, so I'm gonna apologize for that. But, you know, I think we always try to
Yeah.
compare ourselves as much as we can, so that's something we wanna consider as well on any decision.
It's hard because every district is making different choices. Geography makes a huge difference, how many, how their elementary schools are spread out. We talk about Reading, who doesn't, if I remember correctly, all of their elementary students live within 2
Yeah,
miles of
there's
their
one
school.
bus.
They have one bus.
They run one bus to the
Wild.
middle school,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, that's the other thing where like, we made a decision when we went to school start times, we changed the school start times to have all the elementaries open at the same time and to have high school and middle school open at the same time. There are a lot of advantages to that, but one of the disadvantages is we have to use more buses because if there were 3 or 4 routes, we're paying for the bus, it wouldn't cost us more to run 3 or 4 different routes. I mean, I don't know if there's, I guess that's a question. I don't know if there's any way to do the scheduling different with fewer buses, and still have the start times at the same time, but probably not. I mean,
Yeah,
we can't.
we've looked at that.
Yeah.
That was something that we, even using some better software with the bus ride software and trying to.
Like if you put a larger gap
Look at
between
it,
the start
it's-
times, one way or the other, and then
You still have
you
to
did
get
multiple
everybody, you
routes.
still have to get half the
Yeah,
population.
but then you're gonna
each
have,
time.
even if you did 2 routes before they started,
you've got people-
but then you have people here for 20 minutes, that you have
Yeah.
to supervise, and so.
45 minutes,
We
yeah.
run it's pretty efficient,
Yeah.
pretty tight operation.
Diana?
Is there any way to get that information? Like, we asked that question, how do other districts keep it low? Is there any way to get that
Yeah, I can certainly
information?
reach out.
Just to
reach out
understand
and
it,
try to
like,
gather
is
that.
there things like creatively that, we could be looking at where, I don't know, cause when I look at the table, we're gonna blow Winchester even out of the water with what's proposed, especially with the cap and, to understand like why is X percentage gonna be lower than us? Like what are they doing differently? Like could we learn from that and make adjustments? Because obviously these towns it's working and it's much lower. So that would be my only thing is
Yeah.
can we learn something from that?
I mean, I know I've seen the rate table, that's the other thing I
Yeah,
put
true.
included, but I know their rates are as high, if not higher than ours. So even our current rate at 380, and even the rate 370,
Yeah.
and the rate, we are significantly lower. So the average rate's like in the 420 to 440 range. So even in some of these districts that are going out to bid this year, I've been monitoring that, and they've been sharing their results. Everyone kind of is a good kind of community that they share their results. The rates are coming in at like 440, what we would see in 26, because of all these factors, so.
But I think the challenge is if you had 6 buses, if you're only paying for 6 buses, it would be a lower dollar amount.
I
So
think
you
that's
might
what you're
say,
seeing, yeah.
oh, we're willing to put $200,000 out of the budget into that. But if we're putting 200,000 out of we're putting 250,000, or we're putting a lot, I mean, the fees are only paying 250,000, which means, you know, $600,000 is coming out of our budget right now. So if you just have fewer buses, either fewer kids taking it or multiple routes and multiple start times, that's the trade-off. But is saving $100 on a bus fee worth the educational impact of having, you know, you can't have teachers, all the elementaries do meetings together and things like that. And that's, I think, the trade-off that you run into.
Some of these districts might do multiple tiers, is what you're saying.
And I would
Run
add,
multiple loops.
yeah, I would add time on the bus too. We get calls here when it's like 20 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
I know my son's on the bus for about 50.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very different when you're running these longer routes. It's just another variable that we're able to do with the more buses.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
I mean-
not, it's not an easy solution or answer.
Yeah,
by any means.
I think the bus program's excellent. I mean, I think it's phenomenal. I think the Bus Right app is really useful. One of my friends was talking about how his son's out there at 6:50 in the morning and doesn't know when the bus is coming because it could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes off. I said, don't you have an app so you can see when it is, just to go out? And she was like, what are you talking about? So I had to show her it. I think we have a great
So
program.
we can track real time?
Yes.
I did not know
Yeah.
this.
You can.
Yeah, the bus,
That's
I hope
phenomenal.
more
That's
families,
great.
if they want to take advantage of it. We've seen that increase,
Yeah.
but that's a service that's there. They have to just kind of download the app.
Yeah.
But it's, they can look
Right now.
at the app for all the buses.
Just sit in the morning and watch all the
They'll
buses.
see-
Totally do
they'll
it.
see
You only get
in
one
time.
bus versus just
Oh, I
taking,
can
I was
only
tracking
when
my
that bus
son.
is supposed to be at their stop. And I think,
That's
it
fantastic.
fluctuates because of a variety of traffic flow and factors, and they'll see that
Sure.
fluctuate as they watch it.
Yeah.
And even me, if I can pull everything up in the morning and see what all the buses are doing, and even toggle over stop 8, and the bus is on stop 4, and see, it's gonna get there in 4 minutes, if I need to, or.
Uber
I
can
think-
do it.
I think-
Buses can do it.
I think when my kid was in school, I'd be saying, see, the bus is already passed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I don't know what the committee thinks. I mean, I wouldn't be in support of a drastic change, like trying to change start times or anything like that. And I just think in a year where we really have a tough budget year, it's pretty clear, like for 6 years, we haven't made any changes. And, you know, we've had some huge price increases here. And I don't want to wait another year and then have to do it all in, you know, a year or 2 years. And so I think we need some adjustment. I mean, Diana said the proposal, like, I don't think our proposal is to go to what would make it 50-50.
It isn't? Okay.
No.
No,
I don't think
no.
that, I think what Michael was trying to say is, if we did this, that's how we would get to
Yeah.
50-50.
Got it. Okay.
What Rich and Dr. Daly, Mr. Connolly and I were talking about was some other things. And I think there's different ideas. I mean, one thing that I didn't bring up the other day was even if the if the family cap was 2 bus passes, you could do that too, and just say like, instead of having like,
Instead of 1.5 or whatever.
instead of 1.5, just to be like, like, again, like 450, 900 or whatever, I mean, and whatever. But I mean, I think what we had said at the very minimum, I think we had said 450, 750, I think is what we had discussed, and you said that was, it only adds like, what, 25,000?
I believe it's 25,000, yeah, I'm looking at it now.
So I mean, I don't think we go all the way to 600 and 1,100, but I think
Well,
somewhere around 450 to 500 for a bus
I
pass
think-
and
I think
some
we should
sort of
try to,
family cap.
if we can, I think
Yeah.
we should have a sense of where we, not want to be, but think we need to be 3 years from now, and then plan incremental increases to get there.
You might lose people if you go too high, too.
Yeah. But we also have a wait list right now with buses too.
Yeah, but if
Yeah.
you were to bump it up like to the 50% mark, you're probably gonna lose people, which I'm
For
not
sure.
saying
Yeah.
we're proposing
Yeah.
that, but.
Yeah, but if we did that, I mean, the other piece about that is like, if we would get rid of a bus or two, I mean, that's a challenge. I mean, and so I think that's another reason to do it incrementally.
Yeah.
You do a small incremental and you see what happens with it, because the people paying it are the ones that are optional that help to fund it. But the counter of that is if you have empty buses, you don't need as many buses, and so the expense goes down too.
Yeah.
The problem is they'd all have to be in the same zip code.
Correct,
or
yeah, or,
Same neighborhood.
Yeah,
Correct.
and the other part of that is, you're I would guess, just speculation, you'd be more likely to lose high school students than you would elementary students, but you still need 12 buses for the elementary students.
But actually, I think middle school probably is a huge usage, more than,
Middle school is the greatest usage.
correct.
Really?
Yeah,
But middle and high are on the same bus.
on the same bus.
Correct. So you have the high of the middle with the low of the high.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I think it's just the singular methodology, like, if the bus costs are going up, we have to look at user fees, and it's like the what else, like, okay, I understand there's like, you know, given trades, and we talk about, oh, we can have less buses, that's like still the one-to-one in this bubble, like, are there other things that could help offset, I don't even know, the cost, and what are those other options besides this? Cause it's just in like this bubble, and that's
Can't
sort of
hurt
the
to ask.
decision, like, oh, bus costs are going up, so that's a direct correlation to fees over time, and it's like, this could be, can we go out a little bit? Can we go out a little further and say like, oh, well, we would have to give up this, and maybe that makes more sense than putting additional
Can
burden
you,
on families.
can you give examples though? Because the challenge with that is,
I don't know
Yeah.
how the funds can be used within, you know, the appropriate, you know, there's certain buckets that have to be used certain ways, so I don't know if that would apply, but I'm just asking the question, like, I don't know the answer, and to make the.
I think it's worth finding out what
decision.
other towns are doing.
Yeah, I'd be so
Yeah.
curious to find out just like a few other towns. And again, I would assume it just
Maybe
comes
there's no
directly
match.
out of their budget, right? But,
Yeah, I mean, some could be, you know, tearing. And
Right,
and
which-
looping, so they said they might have 6 buses and said it could have been 8 or 9.
But is it all
Not
confined like that? Can you look at other areas in the budget, or it's like, no, you have to, you know, it's just.
the money can go to anything, that's,
Well, the fees obviously have to go to bus.
Correct.
Of course,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
outside of that, like the part we cover, right, outside of user fees, are there other
We
areas that?
allocate more from the budget. from the
Yeah,
area.
that's what I'm
can.
asking. And what,
Yeah.
Then
what
we're
would
cutting
that,
other
what would
positions.
those,
We can't, I mean, that's what we've been doing.
yeah.
And that's what the budget that's in front of you that's recommended is no user fee.
I'm not saying I
increase.
want to
Yeah.
do that, I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's nice to
Um,
see those options and say, okay, I've looked and explored everything and the impacts and it out, like, basically when I weigh that, we have to, the best option for the district is to go with.
Yeah.
Then it feels like,
We're making
know.
more of an informed.
yeah,
And
yeah.
ideally, we wouldn't be having this discussion on a year that it's gonna be a challenging year to even meet that budget that we saw, last time. Unfortunately, we are. This is gonna be a year where we may be forced to already look at, you know, make some hard choices. We don't know yet if that's gonna be the case, but it makes it harder to have this discussion also, because that kind of puts the pressure on us to not put more from the budget, from the general funds in. But
Yeah, I mean, one's the high, I mean, so, this is typically the time of year we open up registration as well.
Mhm.
And we start collecting the data, and that helps us, I know it seems early, but that helps us plan and
Mhm.
design the routes and start organizing, the bus passes and everything, believe it or not, we usually start that at the end of March. You know, I know this hasn't been, we've been talking about user fee increases probably up until today or this point, kind of publicly, you know, we've mentioned the user fee cap. So I don't know if one approach is that when we communicate, which is gonna happen, you know, soon, could be ideally this week if we can. And just sort of explain that we're seeing these cost challenges, we're gonna be exploring and researching over the next several months other alternative options, if there's any. It doesn't, right now, it doesn't seem like, you know, we could have a lot of options, but we're gonna research it. But a potential, you know, fee increases, you know, could be very well be coming, kind of imminent in a sense. If things stay status quo for the following, don't do it next year, but for the following year. When the real increase is gonna, next year it's 21 and then it's 64.
Yeah.
That gives people a lot of advance notice to kind of think about their situation.
I just, Michael, I mean, I hear the idea of like, let's see what else we can do, but next year, we're gonna lose the ESSER funds. So we're losing $225,000, $240,000, and we're gonna have a big bus increase each of the next 2 years. I think we have to do something this year, and I don't think we go to 50%, but we're at 30% right now, and so I think we do a little bit, because even if we find another solution, the other solution I don't think is gonna get us to 50-50. I think maybe if we can find a way to eliminate 2 buses or do something, it'll help. And so I hear that, like, not just saying, like, we have to get to 50-50 and let's do a huge increase this year, but we do something this year for the fees, and we can continue to look at other ways if we can save money in other ways. But I don't think we can kick the can down the road anymore. I think for 6 years, we haven't done anything. When we did a $138,000 increase, we did nothing, and we're in a situation now where we're gonna be cutting positions from this. And, you know, I would just, 25,000 isn't gonna save much in the budget this year, but I think it starts it, and again, whatever we get to, but I think there needs to be something this year, because I think the solution is we can't be paying $600,000 out of the budget, and.
But are we saying do nothing,
Buses.
or are we saying let's find out more before we do something?
But we need to advertise in the next week.
I think it's a combination of the both.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone would be surprised. I mean, they might not be happy, but surprised, everything's gone
Yeah,
up. Like,
inflation,
everything has
everything,
gone up.
yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
think that's a big
that's
deal.
not a surprise to anybody. So, you know, if it's bumping up, whatever, what was the proposed, was it like $50 per pass?
Well, it's not in there.
It's sort of the starting.
It's not, okay.
It's just a, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 400, so if it goes up to 450 and a family cap of
750.
750, then like I agree with Scott, people wouldn't be, they won't be happy, but they won't be surprised to see it. But then also at the same time, figuring out, is there another creative way to do this, or see what other towns are doing and sort of explain that all to people? Because obviously, no one's gonna be happy to see that increase, but at least we will be armed with the information to provide to people who are questioning
I
it.
also feel like.
I mean,
I'm
it's
sorry.
gotta come from somewhere, right?
Yeah. I also feel like pairing that relatively small increase in the terms of the problem, with that messaging that you talked about, makes the messaging a lot more powerful than if we just said in the application or the letter or whatever, look out, we may have to do big fee increases in the future. I don't think people will, if there isn't a fee increase in front of them, they may not really pay much attention to that. I mean, if it generates feedback from the community, a fee increase, I think that's a good thing, because we're not gonna get feedback
Sure.
right now, you know, because no one's watching and, you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
I just think we're gonna have to figure it out for it to be sustainable anyway.
Right.
You know, you're not gonna bump it up to, you know, the 50% mark. but
$600
eventually, you
yeah.
have to cover that, how much this is gonna go up, so.
Yeah,
That creative look might have to happen anyway,
right.
And we can certainly decide to
Yeah.
do that, right? To say, we're gonna raise it 50 and maybe in a couple of years, raise it another 50, and whatever the increases are in the cost, we have to bake it in.
Is there some comparable that you could do with Winchester up against us, because they're on the higher end, like, is there something comparable there that, like, the number of buses or something there that kind of helps understand, like, why we're up that way too?
Yeah, I can certainly reach out to them. I know they have.
Because that's like a
lots of
benchmark
budget.
that's similar.
I know, in a lot of ways, based on my recommendation, they were the second district in this New England, or the nation to do bus rate.
Yeah.
They want bus rate.
Yeah. Well, I think the key thing to look at is not only the user fee, but the total cost of the program. And so, because
Right.
the reality is, if our program is costing $850,000, now, it very well may be that we come back and say, okay, we could run 4 different start times and
That's gonna surface again.
500,000, or we could run long bus routes where kids are on for 50 minutes, you know, and we might come back and still say, and I would personally say, because I send my kids on the bus, I would rather my kids not be on the bus for 45 minutes. I would rather not have them starting at 7:10 in the morning for, you know, middle school or high school, and that may be the decision we can make. So I'm not saying we shouldn't get that information, but I just know, I know when we were even having the discussion the other day, Michael wanted to get out the bus pass thing 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, and we asked him to hold off so we could at least have this discussion amongst everybody here. But I think he has to put something out, and there has to be a cost associated with that. And so, even if we don't go, if we don't go to like halfway to the 600, 1,100, even if we do something like $50 for, one and $100 for the family cap, I think it's something that we do. And as Rich said, we get the notice out and we get feedback, but then we can also say, like, here are the comparisons, here's the alternative to that, and, we could
Is that
see
the
if we're willing.
methodology you want? Because it seems like we've waited a long time and then we bump, and are we gonna move to this, like, we bump every year versus we try to maybe make a more substantial bump, but we hold out for several years? I mean, that's also a question too. Making like such a quick decision on like also methodology of taking a very different approach than we've done in the past.
That's fair.
Just to get like the email out. I don't know if that's, I don't know.
I actually think we should have bumped it last year, and I didn't. I think
We have a goal to reduce fees and
we
just keep bumping
do.
them.
Yeah.
We do, but the cost of gas and other services are higher, and so.
Mr. Connolly, I have a question, and this is related. How many people, do you have numbers on how many people with the free reduced lunch take advantage, like utilize that in terms of bus? Like, is that number stay steady? Like, I would be curious like, how much do the bus rates have to increase for people to take advantage of that? Or is it just, I wonder if it would stay steady? Is it a very small number?
I'm gonna pull it up, but I think it's a high number. It's
A high number?
yeah, majority. I'm gonna say
Okay, so
majority.
people are using that way,
Yes,
they're
yes.
using that as if they
Yep.
have, the need, okay.
Just remember, if they go up substantially to every single parent that sits or complains about that drop-off line in the morning, because school start times are together, you're gonna get everyone that's anti them together showing up to a meeting, because they're gonna be like, what else can be looked at, and the school start time will come up because of the number of buses, and that's gonna open up that can of worms all over again.
And you lose, you heard them talk tonight about the late bus, that would be a loss
Yeah,
to
right.
change.
But I think that there's a lot of, like, you see it on social media, like, there's just this,
Social
you know,
medias.
there's some people that's, still haven't embraced that decision, and this gives an opportunity to, like, revisit all that, and I would
Yeah.
hate for the district to have to experience that. So it's something to consider mitigating, because it was a decision, and it's a decision that the district made, and there was a lot of thought that went into it, and the last thing you wanna do is revisit that.
Are you suggesting maybe we do smaller increments to start and then do a big bump, or big bump now and then smaller
I
increments
just
later?
think you have to think about those risks. I don't know the exact answer, but just to try to mitigate them, and maybe the small bump does mitigate that, right? So that supports that methodology versus.
Yeah, I'm just sort of playing it out.
Yeah.
We have tried to avoid having sort of annual increases, right or wrong, or
Yeah.
we've sort of waited till
But that,
$70,000.
but it feels like we missed,
Yeah.
it feels like we missed one, right? Because we probably,
Well-
and the pandemic, that the timing for that would have been right around the pandemic, so that's not the
Yeah.
time to do it, but, it feels like we
Yeah.
normally would have looked at a rate increase in 20 or 21. Not a huge one, but, our costs are up, so let's bump up the rate a little bit. Yeah, but that's,
Cost this year also went a little higher than I think anybody expected.
right.
Yeah.
What would you guys like to do? Like, what's the ideal situation?
We've talked quite a bit about it. I think our stance is more to do the early advertising of it and to look at it for next year. But I understand the argument about not trying to go up too much. I think it's I think the comparative data is another variable. It's like, yes, everything's gone up, but we're charging a fee for something. I think we probably have more users who don't qualify that we give rides to. I know in a lot of towns, there's just no busing, and that's it. That's just the answer. It's like everything else in North Reading. It costs a little more. We have more assistant coaches. We have smaller class sizes. These are all the things we have.
Yeah.
And I agree, we want to preserve those things. And there's a million benefits to the start times being all the same, that even the inconvenience of 10 or 15 minutes more in a drop-off line outweighs, and I know on an individual day it doesn't feel that way, but the big picture, there's years of work that went into all of that. And so I think to try to open that up is not great.
Is that
I think-
50% was that a recommendation, or is there a recommendation?
No, that was just sort of,
Okay.
at one point, I think that was just, what would it be if we were to try to get to 50%?
Got
Because
it.
50% theoretically it's about 6 buses would more or less cover what we're required to do by law. And then we are supporting an additional 6 buses to bus everyone we're not required to do. So it's about that 50% ratio, so then it was just sort of hypothetically, if we were to try to get right to the 50% and have the optional busing program be completely self-funded,
Yeah.
what would it take?
Okay.
And that was what that chart was meant to illustrate. It wasn't meant to be a recommendation for next year.
I mean, that's actually a good point too, where like, if, like, our fee is, our cost is 850,000. And really our cost that we have to do is say 450 or whatever. But in some districts, that's gonna be different, because if districts are really close together, then there's very little that you have to do, so you can have fewer. If it's really far apart,
That's,
you can't charge the user fee, so if you have 10 buses, 8 of them might be required anyway, so there's not the user fee for them.
Right.
correct,
But-
yeah, that's a lot of it.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, and again, I think we should look at it, but, I mean, at the end of the day, the cost is going up 21 to 22,000 next year. I just think we should, just like we just did for the before school, we should at least cover the cost increase for next year and say the bus is going up, and I just think the problem is gonna be exacerbated next year, because it's gonna be, 3 times the increase, and, yeah, just, again, that's where I'm at on it, and so, I don't like user fees going up, but I don't like the alternative either, so.
This is
Yeah.
the last comment I want to make, but can we know, like, if we go up by $50, the next 2 years recommendation will probably look like it's hard to even like forecast what it's gonna look like, so
Right. No, I
would
get
a
what you're
scenario
saying.
going up to 500, then the next 2 years will be less of a blow, and it would be sort of more of a flat line increase over time, like, to know what that distribution would be versus going like 450, but then we're going up to, 600 the next year, versus like, is there something more incremental, and then can we choose from those scenarios? Because obviously we need to do an increase, it's just how we do it and
I
when we
think-
want to take the impact of it.
Excuse me, sorry. I think the telling part will be next year when we look at the bus contract. Because the final 2 years are if we have to stick with the contract we're in, these are option
Good
years.
point, yeah.
So we'll
Cover
go out
now,
we'll
and
go
then-
out for a bid next year. We could look at least and see if there's anything else.
Yeah.
What Michael was saying to us before was, most likely the option years that we have are going to be less expensive than the alternatives. So then FY '27, it's probably gonna be a big increase again if our current contract is actually below market.
You can justify it off the decision not being made yet to go with the last 2 years, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah, we can always look at it, we can always go out to bid.
that's justification for kicking it down the road.
But I would say those outer years are sort of trending with what the market's doing right now, at least what the data, that's what data shows now, with everyone that is going out to bid.
But it's unknown yet what
So it
we're
could
gonna
change.
do, so.
Yeah, we have
So
we're
we
not
need to
rooting for
handle what we
recession.
know, which is next year.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to justify it, I'm
Yeah,
helping
no,
here
I know.
at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the per bus rate, I mean, it was $5 or $10 increases each of the last few years, and then if we have to take the option year, it's $30 and then another $30, so it's $60 over 2 years, when $60 was like 6 years before, so.
It's
So-
it's not an easy one.
With all that being said, Michael does have to send out the bus pass information this week. I think we should increase it. I think, again, I don't know what the right amount is, but what Rich and I had talked about before was 450, 750. It basically covers the cost of the increase for the bus next year, and I would propose that if other people agree, if we want to make a motion on that. I don't know if people have different dollar amounts they're thinking about, but,
Yeah, I mean,
or even just a different structure. I mean, we could keep it at 400 and I mean, it might not do the same thing to say you have to pay for 2 bus passes, and that's a family cap, 400, 800. You have 2 kids, and then at least if you have 1 child, it's not going up. But I don't know if that does the same amount, but we've always had, like, the family cap for 2 kids is less than.
It's like 1.5, yeah, or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
So we could change the structure that way too, where if you feel like it's more fair to say, well, at least if you have 1 kid, it's 400, you know, and then 2 kids, you're paying 800, but 3rd kid is free.
Maybe next time we should have a little bit more time to like
Yeah,
get some feedback.
Because we're time
and then
limited here, it's either.
Go back.
Yeah,
and-
this is, that's
seems
the
a
only
little-
thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, I can always push it.
Comfortable.
No,
It's-
Arbitrary.
I think we're not gonna get all the information we need in the next 2 weeks,
Right.
so that, yeah, so I think we can decide if we're gonna make any change now. Whatever we decide about that, it's an ongoing discussion for sure. And I don't think we should,
Yeah, this isn't a big enough increase that
right,
we can ignore this issue down the road.
Right.
So,
and it is too soon, we're just beginning the discussion as a group to even consider a big increase that would then
Right.
mean we're done with increases for 5 years. We don't, you know, we don't have enough information for that. So I think we're either, in my mind, the choice here is do something like the $50 increase, or don't do anything.
Yeah.
for this year.
For this year, and then continue to investigate and also see how the revenue plans come out and, you know, and how the staffing needs are and how it all fits together.
I'm sure those will swing our way.
Yeah, it's gonna go boom like that.
Okay, so do we want to make a motion on anything? We have to decide where we're at here, so.
Yeah, I'm happy with
I think-
people, if people want to say where they're at before we have a vote, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I would be in favor of increasing 50 and 100 for the, not a drastic change to how we're doing it right now, not a drastic change to anything else, but just to at least tell people things are getting more expensive and not to take, you know, more money from the general fund away from other things that we need to fund, because we're gonna be cutting things this year, and so I would rather, again, if, I understand people might not like fee increases, but I would rather a fee increase than cutting more services. So that's where I stand.
I agree. I mean, I do feel the argument about it being sort of arbitrary, but also knowing that we are going to be struggling to cover. I would tend to agree with Scott, even though, again, it does feel a little arbitrary. But I can't imagine people won't be surprised to understand that fees have to increase with just the way inflation is right now.
I think this chart, the chart of the comparisons, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be public, but if it were public, if people saw that, they'd have a lot of questions, and I would understand why they would have those questions.
Right.
I have a sense of why it is like that. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. There's no one reason, but it's just decisions they've made, or how their schools are structured, or how their town is structured. There's a lot of things go into it, but, I mean, that's a big difference. And they're all over the board, but, you know, most of them are under.
But it would be so nice to be able to say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it would be so nice to be able to say, yes, our bus fees are this high, but to Dr. Daly's point, our class sizes are this much smaller. Now, it's like, you can't really make it that simple of an argument, but that is something that you can say about North Reading. We have these extra benefits, and it's gotta come from somewhere.
And I'll also mention, like, even though we just did like a $5 increase on the preschool for 5 days, that's $5 every month. That's $50 for the year. That's the same sort of increase we're talking about here, is over the course of a year, we're talking about $50 more for the bus pass, so.
And I do feel slightly different about both of those programs than I do about athletic and.
That's the next discussion.
And those fees, because even though those programs aren't required, or at least for the most part, I guess, they are a part of the education. And the bus fee and the before-school program fee, those are sort of services that we provide alongside it. even though busing is obviously critical to many families, it's, it's,
It's a thin line.
it's a thin, yeah, it is a thin line, but it's, but, a lot of towns, like Reading, Reading's on this list in terms of what their bus fee is, but they don't run any buses, so.
That's it.
It's not apples to apples.
Yeah,
That's
the
not
question I
apples
would
to
ask other districts is, can every student who's not eligible have the option to ride a bus?
Right.
And that's the case
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Everyone that wants to ride a bus can ride a bus. In other towns, I know growing up, I wasn't able, there was no option. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I
a
didn't.
bus
That's
if
the
you
difference.
met the threshold, but
Right.
I had to walk every day with 2
That's
miles up
correct.
the
Yeah,
hill.
you're right.
But,
That's it.
but everyone in North Reading that wants to ride a bus rides it. If that's a standard we want to stick to, there's a cost to that.
Right.
And so,
A true story. I had to walk through the blizzard of '78 to get home.
Yeah.
To me, I'm concerned about like a death by 1,000 cuts. I'm worried. My worry is, it's 50, it's 80, it's whatever each year. I mean, obviously, I think we need to do something. I'd sort of like to know, is there an end game, or is this more like, look, we should change the model, and it's just going to be an increase to adjust for inflation every year, and we just need to factor that in. I guess I'm going more with the way you're going, in that I want to know what our end game is and how we're going to get there, rather than just pick a number and say, okay, let's do something. Although I do think we end up having to just do something for this year. I guess where I'd like to go is say, okay, we need to get to a number. How are we going to get to that number over time? Are we just going to say we're going to do increments, or are we going to do we'll hit it here and then leave it over time?
Well, and I think the part of the problem is we don't know what the number is we need to get to.
Correct. We have to
Partly,
negotiate the next.
partly we have to decide. That's sort of what we have to decide. We know what the costs are gonna be, at least for the next couple of years. 3 years, I guess.
Well, we know what it is for 1 year, and there's options for 2.
Right.
But we
that's-
have a base case for the next 2.
Correct.
We know
But
it's not gonna
yeah.
be any higher than
Correct.
than
Correct.
the next year, 2 years.
But the way that I reconcile with that is, the next 2 years are unknown, so let's cover what is known,
Right.
which is this year.
Right.
But that's just, like, I'm only supportive if you can confirm, I don't have any math in front of me, that this proposal would cover the overage for,
The 21,000.
yeah.
So,
Well, is that what that equates to? Is that what, going up
21,000,
450
So the
and
four-
750, or?
so the 450 and the 750 compute to 35,000.
Okay.
It was the 450 and the 700 that was 25,000.
Okay.
We could run scenarios 425, 725 is 22,000.
And what do we need
And
to
what's-
make up?
Yeah, what's,
The increase, increment for next year is
21,600 is
600.
next year.
That's the $10 per bus.
and
I
isn't
would
that
feel
just-
more
Isn't that
so-
more justifiable to say, like, we're
I agree.
raising, because it's not arbitrary anymore, right? We're raising it to this, and yes, we're gonna revisit it, and yes, it's probably gonna go up again, but at least it's
It's
has
matched
that-
to something.
yeah,
I
it has
agree with that.
backing you up.
and it's only $25.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That makes me feel a
It's
little
not
bit
that
more
I'm not, I
confident.
think like the $25 increase is gonna blow their heads off and be a huge differentiator. It's not.
It can be justified.
But it's the justification to, like, I'm just thinking
It's the
from a
same as
community
kids before
respect.
school.
Yeah, it's just like, we're doing it for this reason, to cover the overage for the increases in X year. And then
But-
you have that, it's tied to it.
But the counter to that, though, is like we did the before school 3 years ago, and said we're gonna do it again in 3 years. The increase in the last 2 years was $43,000.
Yeah, but that's a
And
little,
so,
it's a little,
it's just getting, I mean, again, if we wanna say, and the reality is to keep it at 30% of the budget, and so, again, I think we need something, I don't particularly care where we lie, but I would like to get back a little bit more. I don't think we can get to 50%, I think that's probably too much. I think the general fund probably has to cover maybe around 60% of it, but I would rather get back a little bit more to, 35% being covered, not dipping under 30%, and, yeah. So again, if it's, if
So-
425 is where.
If we
people
do the 425,
fly, yeah.
if we raise to 22, whatever it is, $25,000, 22,000, it goes from covering 30%, the contribution goes from 30% to 33%, basically. So it's, we're not like, making a huge change in how much we're covering. And the alternative, the alternative is that the contribution is gonna constantly go down, because if we hold the fees steady. So I get what you guys are saying about justifying that smaller rate because it matches up with the increase. I'm okay with that.
Or if you're going for a target percentage, then at least the number's tied to something. It's not just like,
Yeah, like, oh, that sounds
like
good.
we're trying to cover 35% of the cost, what is that? Then
And I
let's
just wonder if
approve
that should, I'm just wondering if that should be a decision that we make over a longer period of time.
Yeah, okay. Then maybe we just cover the overage and then, to your point, like, target a percentage.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be 50, it could be 40, it could be, yeah.
And you're going to, in your email, provide the justification for.
Yeah,
Cover us.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually don't think it's gonna be, I mean, I know it's not cheap, I'm not saying that at all, but I think everybody, like you said, understands the increase these days.
Yeah, so, and again, I mean, at the end of the day, the school committee is the one that sets the fees, for better or for worse, and we should cover Michael a little bit on this. I mean.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
We are deciding how to allocate the funds and trying to reserve the funds so we can keep everything else, so.
Is it gonna be a big F in our goals?
No, we're having a serious discussion.
No.
I mean,
I don't think so at all.
We just changed the goal.
Yeah. We're gonna
All I'm
increase.
saying again is, will somebody please make a motion?
So what was the number we came up with?
Four
Go all night.
25 individual, and then 725 family cap achieves 22,000.
Now, right, the only pushback on that is currently it's 400 and 650.
Yeah, we're putting a little
So
bit
then
more
you're
of a burden
putting,
on.
you're putting
on
75 on the one.
the
Wait,
family
400 and, oh, I see.
It's 400, 650 right now.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
going to 425, 725, as opposed to like, what, 450, 700 covered 25,000, you said?
450, correct.
450, 700, I don't know.
425, 700 is like 18,000.
Whatever you wanna do.
Whatever.
I mean, those, yeah.
No, I'm just wondering
I'd have
about
to
like,
get my
I'm just thinking about
calculator out to see what
about
the-
the fee being up to 725 on a family. I'm just wondering. I mean, I don't care either way, but I mean, I'm just trying to think about where you put it, because you're putting, for the person that's doing a single one, they're around 25, but the person that
Yeah.
has two is going up
Yeah,
75,
Right,
and so
so,
that's.
so it goes from the second, I mean, you can't because somebody might have
So-
5 kids, but,
If you do like 430
425 and
700
700 is not enough,
yeah.
technically.
I mean, it's close.
Or 450, 700, I mean, that's what we had said originally was 25,000, and so it's $50 for one, it's $50 for two. So it's $100 for the family, it's $50 for the one. So it's not 450, 750, which I said, but it's 450, 700. It's $50 for the one, it's $50 for two, but
I would
or
do.
do you wanna go lower of
I would
one?
do 425 and something like 725.
Yeah, that's.
So 300 more. For the second one,
That's
again,
what I have. That's
yeah.
20, that's 22.6.
That's 20, oh, that's what you were saying.
That's what I was
Yes,
saying, yeah.
that's what he said.
And if you drop it to 700, you lose 3,000 or 4,000, whatever it is.
Correct, yeah.
I should vote no on it and say that I didn't increase the
'Cause you're
usage fee.
running.
You did.
He's running alone.
That's what I should do.
No, he's not.
Oh, no?
No, he's got someone on the ballot, right?
What?
You got a competition?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No.
No.
We didn't turn in this paper?
What about,
Nobody pulled, nobody pulled.
Oh, I thought they.
that gets to
Yeah, other two.
18?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that seems
It's
a little
round.
better, it's
425
smoother.
and 700, 2550
Yeah.
increase.
Okay.
Gets 17.5, right?
17.5, and could maybe maintain a little more passes too.
Feel
If you write
good
a
with
check,
that?
we get in this
I
right
feel,
now.
yeah, I feel a little better.
Yay, Michael feels good.
Right now.
He gets the phone calls, so.
I know.
that's- I'm trying to.
So what do we want?
So-
I mean, I don't mind 725 too. I mean, like, whatever. I mean, it's.
I think we're, I mean,
I think we're at 700, 425, 7.
Sold. I move that the committee vote to increase the bus fees for the fiscal year ending 2024 to $425 per pass with a family cap of $700.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
And I move that we make sure we have this discussion again before a year from now.
Well, I think it should be, I'm assuming, Mr. Connolly, I'm assuming you're going to do some research next year before we select the option anyways.
Right.
Correct.
So I think that should probably be the time that we do the discussion. We should have that discussion so that we know what the fees are gonna be and go from there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
now we
you.
can talk a little bit about cuts.
Now we can talk more.
Fee cuts, I mean.
Now we can talk more broadly about all other fees, extracurricular, athletic, performing arts. Do you want to start your?
It's right.
Not with the, not,
There you go.
oh, is that, no, you know what, because it makes me go to like the web. 7-day free trial to rotate pages.
So I think the general idea, again, was we were starting to talk about where do we want to get to? Do we want to get to 40% is paid by the user, 60% is paid by the general fund? Do we want to get to 50/50? Some of the fees are at 50/50, some of them are below that. And so we were having a general discussion, but that all started with the idea of a universal cap on fees, which I still think we should do. And so that was where we were having discussions. And, I mean, I think what Michael put together of the two things, the budget offsets and the total of the user fees is really helpful. And even just like if we wanted to get to 50/50, where we would go. In terms of all that, I don't know what we're proposing. I think,
Well, I have a proposal.
yeah, okay, well, we have lots of different thoughts we talked about. So
I think
Rich,
we
you wanna
should,
talk?
I think we should put in a cap. We can talk about what the amount is, and the fact that we just raised the bus fee, you know, means that more people are gonna fall into that cap. I also think we should lower the extracurricular fee. The reason, I think that for a couple reasons. One is it's the highest percentage, it's one of the two highest percentage fees that, you know, in terms of coverage, and we might wanna lower that. And also, I think it's that, lowering that fee would impact the most number of families and students. As opposed to the cap, which would help people who are really paying a lot of fees, and that's important, but it's not a huge number of people. So I think we could set those targets for all those fees lower than they are currently covering. I think we should do that carefully as well. I mean, I'm not suggesting we raise the athletic fee to meet a cap that matches I mean, not a cap, but a percent. You know, like if you set it at 45%, I'm not suggesting we should willy-nilly raise the athletic fee, but I think a small reduction in that extracurricular fee would impact a lot of students, and maybe help a student who wanted to be in a club and just couldn't pull the fee. So that's sort of where I'm at. That's kind of a general comment, but.
Other general comments, thoughts? I mean, I care most about I think there should be a universal cap, and
I'm in favor.
yeah, and I think if we get to, I mean, this is where, like, I don't know if lowering it $50 to then raise other ones later on, I don't know if it should all be done at the same time or not. I mean, again, if we have a healthy revolving account in extracurricular activities right now and we don't need the extra money, then I'm fine with lowering that as well if we've been doing well in those, because again, why don't we ask Mr. Connolly that? I mean, what's the revolving account on the extracurriculars? I mean, how are we doing in that? And
So we're doing well in the extracurricular. That's the program that I think we have the most, healthy balance. We've budgeted conservatively sort of a $40,000 offset on the high school side and a $20,000 offset on the middle school side. And we consistently achieve receive higher than that. So we've built up a relatively healthy balance.
Do you know what this year the number was for what we have in there?
Yeah, I can look that up. It's actually, it's in the budget book right there.
Oh, yeah.
I'll grab it. I didn't bring mine, actually, brought mine.
Just to save the browser. Did we kick out?
No, I just.
And use Windows.
Windows. $952.
I actually have Acrobat.
Is what we carried over.
So we carried over, so we made 54,000? It was 54,000 was the total collected?
Save it that way.
Was what is the surplus?
I'll save it.
That's
That's
over,
what we carried-
And then you can
That's what we
email it.
carried over into this year.
above the 60, so the 60,000 is,
Unless I sign it.
we collected what?
For the high school this year.
56,000 for the high school,
For the high
and then there's
school.
middle school as well?
Middle school is like 22,000.
Okay, so we're well over the 51% then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. So then I'm fine with that then. So what would we propose, like drop it to like 150?
I don't know, what's, if you have, would you,
Yes, we could do 150 at the high school and middle school, keep it the same. We could consider a little bit more, 150 high school, 125 middle, or,
do we think there's more value for a student in the high school?
a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The middle school right now is 150?
The middle school,
They're both 200.
They're both 200 for the athletic?
Increased it.
For extracurricular.
Or
For extracurricular.
Okay.
They used to both be 100 back in 2003. Then it was 125 in 2006, and I remember I was here when they went to 200 in 2016 for both.
Middle and high school. I mean, I would propose just doing 150 at each of them,
We could,
and $50 each, and see how it goes. And again, we can make adjustments as we
that would
need.
be okay, because the middle school is collecting less, so I would be okay with that. I'd be okay.
Would that go to 150 for the first one?
And that's just extracurricular, not performing arts or anything else, right?
Yes, I wouldn't do anything with performing arts.
No,
Partly
that's so
because
new.
it's new.
Well, there's a
We
lot.
don't know, we don't have a history.
And there's
I don't have a lot
also,
of data.
I think anyone who's involved sees the value.
Yeah. And then,
150, yeah, 150 for both would be nice.
but then the other piece of it that I would propose on top of it would be a max cap of perhaps something like 2,000 for family, for bus fee, performing arts fees, athletics, extracurricular, all of them, so that in a year, it's not more than 2,000 that anybody's paying. And I know that Mr. Connolly had big concerns about how to do it. I think what it would be is, if you paid more than that, there would be a form that you would fill out, that you would submit it at the end of the year, a refund would be given if you went above that amount. So if you felt that you could afford it and you're supporting the school more, you don't have to do it, but if somebody that's struggling, they'd at least have a cap that they would be, they wouldn't have to pay more than 2,000 in total for all the various fees.
Are we tracking that right now? Are we,
We're working on tracking it, so, we're updating it, so we need a little more time to see what happened with the spring athletic fee. All the final fees are kind of coming in now.
That's part of the problem, is you don't know until the end
Well,
of the
that's-
year who's hitting
There
the
would
cap.
be- I don't know
well,
if
and
we can do that.
that's sort of my point of like,
Saying that cap,
are we adding?
Yeah, no.
but just conceptually,
I'm like, wait a minute.
yeah.
We're adding significant administrative.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not
what
voting
I'm
on
going
this, we're just discussing,
Like-
right?
This is discussion.
Okay, just making
What's the
sure.
administrative cost of trying to deal with that?
I'm like,
Is that
April
upfront or
I
is
know,
it
I
a
just-
year?
It's definitely something we've discussed,
Right.
the cost and the time.
So, maybe maybe this part of this discussion, since it's gotten so late, we can table it?
Yeah, I think this was kind of conceptually, I think everyone knows we've talked about it before in the goal updates, and the subcommittee updates, that this is something that's being explored. We're continuing to look at, we continue to meet, with Rich and Scott as a subcommittee to explore it. We have good data, we're collecting data, I think my office needs a little more time to finalize that data for this year. But I think the concept has merit. I think, you know, I had made no secret in those meetings that I had kind of administrative concerns on it. I don't think they're hurdles that we can't get past.
Yeah.
But I think there's just the process of how it's done needs to be thoughtfully thought out.
And part of that, to be clear, is that these buckets have to be very carefully accounted for.
Yeah.
Because you can't just throw money
Right.
back and forth between them.
Yeah.
So if you end up giving someone a discount, it's gotta be applied pro rata across, I would think, all, whatever buckets they paid into.
Correct.
I mean, and Mr. Conley, when we had talked about this, we talked about like, well, if you don't pay a fee, so you don't have to give a refund, the problem with that is it's harder to account across different buckets. And we're not talking about, you know, the administration is always looking to say like, oh, wait, Jeff, you just paid $100 more, you're gonna get a refund. This would be more, there's a form that you can fill out if you are above and beyond. It would be submitted once a year at the end of the year after all the spring fees, after everything has been accounted for. They would go through and do it and say, oh, yep, Jeff did pay $200 more and a $200 refund
No,
would
I
be
just
given
got
back. But I think that's how I would think. Again, understanding, because again, I think not having to pay it up front is better, but I hear the administrative part of that. And so my, you know, kind of meeting in the middle would be, okay, well, do that, and then at the end, if somebody, and again, put it on the parents too, to say like, we paid more and, you know, I'm entitled to $300 back. And again, we see what it is, and we're not proposing it for this current year. There's no urgency to this decision necessarily.
Because you just, to have it in place really
Right.
by as late as August for the beginning of the year.
Correct, yeah. And again, we'd set the other fees as well. And so I think we could do it in conjunction with the extracurricular activity fee and all the other fee schedules. But I feel strongly that it might not be, again, it might not be every, 100 families are saving $50, but I personally have always felt that, you know, families that may have multiple children, it's a cumulative impact on them.
It
and I
totally
think-
is.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's where I do feel for those people, and so.
I think overall this addresses that, you know, as a school committee, your goal is to reduce fees overall. We also understand that having those fees has allowed us to create new programs like the ones we saw tonight. The a cappella group, for example, chess club got approved. I mean, we're offering more and more and more. And there are some costs that, but overall, our goal is, and we're hearing from families, the need to try to reduce fees and to, you know, to keep those costs at a minimum. So that's our goal overall.
So, do we feel comfortable not addressing anything, either of those tonight for a vote? I mean, and just,
I think I mean, we could certainly, if we wanted to, just set the fee in the extracurriculars, but let's have this as a whole discussion.
Yeah.
We don't have enough data yet to really know about the cap, and so let's look at this at the end of this fiscal year and in the summer and
I
approach
think
it.
we're punting.
yeah, and I'm fine with punting on this one because the bus has to go out sooner rather than later. So I
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
can do
this
something
is
on that
not
one.
time limited.
And that's a real,
Yeah.
issue. Just setting aside the timing, those are big increases that we have to deal with one way or another, so.
Correct. I mean, and again, just to point out, like, all these other things have gotten more expensive as well, too. You know, I mean, so athletics,
Yep.
I mean, athletics, for example, the busing of athletics is included in the athletic fee, not in the busing fee. So like, the cost of the buses going up also impacts athletics because they're now paying more as well for those contracts, so, yeah. But, okay, I think we can move on unless anybody wants to talk more. Diana likes to stay late, so she.
We can power through some routine stuff?
Okay, routine matters, minutes. Who does the minutes for
I
us?
move to approve the open session minutes for the school committee meeting on March 2nd, 2023 as written.
Second?
We have a motion, a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous?
I move to approve the open session minutes of the school committee meeting on March 13th, 2023 as written.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous? Budget update?
Not at this time.
Staffing?
Not at this time.
Bids and donations? Mr.
A
McGowan.
few here. I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $50,000 from the late Sandra A. Liazzo to be used for high school sports programs in memory of Joseph W. Liazzo, son of the donor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
What a great
That's wonderful.
thing.
Second?
We got a motion, we got a second. I mean, this is wonderful. I mean, I think this is one where I think we should try to do something.
Yes,
That's
I
really
agree.
nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bring them in and thank them. And do we know what this is gonna go towards specifically?
Yeah, so it's particularly, it's supposed to be going towards high school athletic program under the direction of the athletic director. This specifically has ties to the baseball program, because I believe the memory of Joseph Liazzo was a member of the baseball team under Frank Carey, and that was a special relationship. So I think that's a lot to do why the donation is coming in. So I think we do have some ideas of how this could be spent to better the baseball.
Oh my gosh, I know Joe Liazzo.
facility
I
and
just
program
realized that.
To kind of complete the project that we kind of already started, with the netting and the sod and there's some other ideas down there that could really complete that.
And maybe we can figure out a way to honor this donation at the field
Yes,
somehow.
we've talked about that too, maybe
Yeah.
a bench or something.
Yeah, and so that'd be good.
Plaque.
Yeah.
I went
Once
to
we
high
know.
school with him. I just realized that.
Oh, wow.
Joe Liazzo. Yep.
Oh.
Wow.
He loved baseball.
Yes, yep.
He loved baseball.
Did we vote?
Yeah.
We had a motion, we have a
Wow.
second.
Okay.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $3,192.33 from the North Reading High School Hornet Hall of Fame to purchase weight room equipment to benefit the students of the high school.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $1,540 from the Batchelder School Parent Organization to help fund the Grade 2 Greater Boston Stage Company field trip.
Second. Second, sorry, losing my voice.
Motion and kind of a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $930 from the Batchelder School Parent Organization to help fund the Grade 2 Mass Audubon field trip.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Second graders hitting the road.
Mm-hmm.
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $500 from Mira
Sorry, greedy.
and Rob Reynolds to help fund Hood Winnie the Pooh School Day. Man, I want to be there.
Great.
School
Second.
play, school play.
Oh, school
play.
play,
School
sorry.
play.
The day is better.
Motion and a second, and I will just point out,
That was supposed to be fabulous. I didn't see it. Did
call out the
anyone?
hood. I was not, my daughter went to it. I had a Aztec soccer game, soccer tournament, but I did hear it was great, and I love that.
And I love that they
I
got to
love that
use
it's
the
back.
set.
Yeah.
Did you see, I saw some pictures. It looked like they used the same set from like Into the Woods, or, because it's like this little elementary school play,
Yeah.
but they have this gorgeous, like,
Oh, that's
wooded set,
Yeah, we
right?
nice.
They looked very pleased with themselves.
Nice, excellent. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous. Moving on to grants.
I'll do the motion then if you guys want to
Yeah.
talk about them. I move that the school committee vote to approve a Supporting Arts and Cultural Vitality Teams grant of $5,225 to support the expenses as recommended by the administration for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Jeff. Dr. Daly, do you want to explain what this grant was for?
Sure, we're just very excited to have the opportunity to take our team, our arts teachers, it would also involve a few students, to look at our arts program through the lens of this index tool the department's piloting. So it really helps us look at the equity, the access to our courses, the types of courses, the types of programs, whether we have them or not, dance, for example, things that we've heard that we'd like to have in our schools, and also what kind of opportunities students have to explore different types and be exposed to diverse artists and diverse forms. So our art staff's very excited about it. We've talked about it through our performing arts group. And all of these grants I'm very excited to receive. We don't often receive them, and we've been writing a lot and getting a good amount, so it's been great.
And who typically writes these grants?
These three I wrote.
Okay,
Yeah.
well.
That's
thank you.
great.
Thank you for
That's
doing
great.
that. Great. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second by Jeff, all those in favor?
Aye.
Jeff, you broke my streak.
Sorry.
Unanimous.
I should say I work very closely with Mr. Clean and Mr. Connolly on it,
Yes.
but, yeah.
That's great.
I move that the school committee vote to approve the hate crime prevention grant of $15,000 to support the expenses as recommended by the administration for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do you want to talk about this one quickly?
Sure, I mean, this, again, we're very excited. We're going to have, Mr. LaPret, Mr. Johnson and I went to a program called Addressing Hate in School Sports. And it's part of the governor's program. It was cooperation with MIAA and Superintendent's Association. So we did a 2-day program there. There was someone from the Center for Study of Sport from Northeastern. So we really like that program. We're going to try to run that program. They try to run small groups of around 30. So we're going to do 30 staff members. We already have over 50 that have signed up that are interested. And then we're going to do 30 students as well, focusing on sophomores, maybe some juniors. The idea there being you build that core that then they grow with the school over the next few years. We're going to target our student leaders, student council, student class officers, GSA, and social activism club to really get some train the trainer type lessons in there. So I think this is important work. I've had a few people reach out about this as well on the student side already, so they're excited about it.
So this is a state grant, or is it like, I just didn't know.
These are all from the Department of Education.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
competitive grants that we applied for.
No, that's fine.
So it pays for an honorarium for the staff to come in like on a Saturday, and it pays for the training.
I think it's great.
Yeah, so we're gonna do, we kind of increase the hours to focus a little more on the training and train more students. But the model is not just have someone come in and speak to the whole assembly. It's more of a training for students. So we will do some other programs that are presentations, but this is more of a training for staff, for students and staff.
Okay.
And also using the toolkit, that's sort of key to this. And I should note too, this grant involved getting support from the North Reading Police as well. And so their civil rights officer reviewed the grant, signed off on it, and we submitted a statement of support for myself and for the police department, so.
Thank you to the police department. We have a motion, we have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
That is it for those items.
Okay, subcommittee update, policy subcommittee.
Saw the fruits of their
Jeff
labor.
Noel,
We
any?
kind of covered that.
Okay.
CIPC is meeting tomorrow again to go through rankings, as you well know. So we've been meeting
How we
about every
looking?
week.
How we looking?
We haven't seen everyone's rankings yet. We haven't seen them.
This is the first reveal of the rankings.
Okay.
Like the
Evaluation.
graph show.
Let's put it this way, there's a lot of money on the table, and we know that not all of it's gonna get funded no matter how you slice it.
Maybe by ARPA.
Yeah.
Evaluation subcommittee. Evaluation?
Oh, well,
Did
we're
you talk about
doing-
anything other than this, the school committee one?
Yeah, this is the committee one.
Okay. Subcommittee upcoming, so finance planning team got pushed back a week.
Yep.
Not for good reasons from what I hear, so things are not going well, but.
It begs the question, if we don't have a good revenue plan by Friday, what do we do for the budget workshop?
Yep. So we can address this at the end, but we're talking about probably postponing that budget workshop.
Yeah.
Along with, there's several calendar suggestions at the end of the meeting tonight.
Well, I mean, I wonder on that one if we even have like a short budget workshop, just to kind of talk about what's on the table and where we're at, and.
But if we're postponing we're gonna end up the hearing too, if we do that, right?
The hearing is gonna remain.
Okay.
Just because we posted that, and, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's already been posted.
The requirement. I mean, we don't have to answer all the.
We won't have all the
We can
answers.
entertain questions, and present an update.
But the vote may move, right? And we may have workshop or two
Right.
first. There's not a lot of time between Friday morning and Monday morning,
Yeah.
you know, so I don't know whether it's,
We can move it if we want.
yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk with you about it. Oh, and we should have actually called out, I know Michael did the budget webinar, so thank you for
Yes.
that, Michael. I usually try to go, but I couldn't because I had a meeting.
We had some participants, thought it was, they got some information, wasn't a lot of questions at the end, but, it was recorded, we did post it on,
Yeah.
it did get posted on the website, so it's out there.
Okay.
What's the date of the finance?
Finance planning team is on March 31st at 8
Oh, it
a.m.
is? Okay.
Yeah, we postponed it from last Friday to this coming
Ah,
Friday.
And hopefully it won't be full soon again, or
Yeah.
that will get good information.
Athletic Subcommittee is scheduled to meet on May 24th at noon. Fine Arts Subcommittee is scheduled to meet on May 24th at 3:15 p.m.
You know what, one of those dates is a different day.
Yeah,
One, we moved to the Thursday, it's my fault, sorry.
So maybe they're not really then. I don't know.
Athletic is the 23rd.
23rd, yeah.
Athletic is the 23rd at noon.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Administrative report, Dr. Daly, anything more?
Just a couple of quick updates. We held Family University this Saturday morning. We had a great turnout. You know, we've talked a lot about maybe doing it differently, just doing it virtually throughout the year or something, but just having everyone in person really made it hit home that it was worthwhile. Dr. Englander presented. It was a really well-received presentation. Noel was there if you want to share.
Oh, it was fantastic. I would just say very valuable, and I hope that if we bring her back, that we could have even more participation, because she really connected with everybody and had a lot of important and in just a really like confrontational way, bringing up some difficult subjects, and she was wonderful. I wish I could have stayed longer.
It was great.
So,
Yeah, good
and there
tips.
is something to be said, and I don't know if you did it on purpose, the way you scheduled it was like sort of in between sports,
That was the
like it
point,
was in
yeah.
between winter and spring starting, and that doesn't affect me, but everyone around me who has kids in sports was like, this is the one weekend I could have
Right.
actually gone, so that was well scheduled.
Unless it was the last weekend to try to ski or something. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always something coming up, but it was intentionally done that way.
Yeah,
Sean
no, that
McQueen did a
was-
great job of all the logistics, and that was something he was well aware of.
I made it just for the one because unfortunately it was tournament weekend and treble chorus, but I made it to the Paul Lucci and Amy Lukowitz. They talked
great.
about marijuana, and so learned a lot about marijuana.
One thing
Yeah.
I would be just curious about, and you don't have to bring it up now, is what was the enrollment like, and how did it split up across the like the breakout rooms?
Mhm.
Like, what were people most interested in?
Yeah, it was well split among them in the first session. And I think you had a few people drop off after the keynote, just as, you know, you may
Yeah.
due to time, but it was pretty well split. In the second one, there was, someone got a 1-to-1 in the 40 Assets to Strong Families, Resilient Kids. The social media was a huge draw.
Right.
And
that was
and we-
Englander?
No.
the
No.
social media was Paul.
Oh,
Lucci
okay,
doing
all right.
that. So both programs are fantastic, and I would they're both hitting on the same things, but the social media, I mean, everyone just had their, notebooks out. So it gave us a lot of thought. One thought that I've had, one thing that we want to do, and what we're thinking about is maybe branding several of these ideas as sort of an ongoing family university. One being in the late summer, doing something with a welcome back for, and an invite to new families, because I feel like that's a missing area when you first move here, to be invited to the schools, no matter what grade you're level in, grade level you're in, just to meet us and also other people in the community that you might connect with. A second one would be, and we're thinking about maybe piggybacking with the Chromebook pickups, is the social media piece, but also having some reps from either our school or even, I think, like Apple or someone would come out and show you like how to set the controls on your phone, because that's what all the questions were about, was like, it's one thing to take it all in, it's another thing to be like, all
Right,
right,
to
how do I,
actually do it.
how do I do it? And you wanna sit there with your phone and your kid's phone and do it as you go. But it was really powerful stuff.
That is
Yeah,
really,
and the
would be
thing is, it
valuable.
changes every 6 months too. Like,
Mm.
not only the app's changing, but even the parental controls change, right?
Right.
So,
And they tend to reset them too, like when
when there's a new version, all of a sudden everything you said
Wow.
like went away.
Exactly. So those are things that we're thinking about doing, but they were really well attended. We are doing a survey and we can share some of that data with you, but we purposely scaled it back a little bit. We went with the keynote. So instead of having more presentations, we went with more people at each presentation. I think we'll see what the feedback is, but anecdotally, I think people appreciated that and seemed to really enjoy the choices and selections we had. So. And then the reality fair, which was mentioned earlier, we're going to have on April 12th, thanks to Lillian Hartman in Youth Services for organizing this, Amy Luckowitz, Laura Miranda, and Peter Majane, who are volunteers, along many others, who are going to take part in this important day. And then my last note was about the updates that I was going to give a few updates on things that we're doing with DEIB, one being the conference that we just went to, the second being the grant we spoke of tonight, but then the third grant, just an update, we are posting those, our Morgan Soros in HR has been doing a great job working with us to come up with some ads for the diversity grant that we received. So you'll see something that's going to go in the Globe in the next couple of weeks, sort of our key period, the few weeks leading into April vacation. We're also going to do a Twitter and a Google ad campaign, and then also just on our social media, Michael's, Sean's, and principals to get out some of those positions that we're targeting with some signing bonus, tuition reimbursement, all those things that are possible through the grant. So we're excited.
And
about
all of this, the activities marketing or everything is covered by the grant?
all of that's covered by the grant. It was 19,800. So we have some bonuses and then some costs for the advertising. And we're going to see whether this helps and what this does.
Be interesting.
So, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, any correspondence?
Not at this time.
Okay, future business. So Monday, April 3rd, we were supposed to have a budget workshop. Do we feel comfortable saying we're not going to have it then, or?
Yeah, and when would it go to if we were to move it? What would you want to do?
You want to move it a week to April 10th, the morning of the hearing?
Let's get a little dicey here.
So the morning of the 10th would be the same morning as the hearing. We'd have a workshop in the morning and then the meeting at night? Or would we just do it before the meeting, or how we have negotiations?
You don't have a work calendar there?
Can't do the 10th.
She doesn't know, she doesn't have a work calendar. Why don't we just email about it afterwards,
okay?
for schedule?
Okay.
We'll propose possibly moving that one. April 10th, we have the budget hearing, which is here. April 20, at 6:30. April 24th, we have hopefully the budget vote meeting at 6:30. April 26th, we have another budget workshop scheduled if needed. I'm guessing it's going to be needed. May 8th, we have the Batchelder School presentation, so that'll be at the Batch. Correct?
That will be correct.
Oh, we have a reorganization meeting in there too, don't we? Or is that the reorganization meeting? Is that the first one, May 8th?
It's probably that meeting, yep.
Okay, May 22nd, the little school presentation at 6:30. June 12th, CPAC presentation. We're gonna do this one before town meeting at 5 o'clock. And then June 12th, because town meeting got scheduled on June 12th when we had a meeting already, so.
Yeah. And that's one of the tricks with all of this. The Monday after that is a holiday. The Monday before, the 5th, is that's the prom and the Grand March and all those things. So if everyone's amenable, we would just do a meeting. It's really a CPAC and we honor the retirees. We've moved away, the school improvement plan presentations are in the fall now, so we don't have that at that same meeting. So we thought we could get it in early if that is agreeable.
Yeah, definitely.
If there's nothing more, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.